Chapter 1047. Translator, Transit Editor. Transit A warriors call the Warlord Manor had great prestige in the hearts of Daoyao citizens, and Jiang Fan was leading the way. Soon, Qin Hao arrived at the Warlord Manor. Looking up, the Warlord Manor's gate was extremely tall and majestic. Not to mention anything else, just the two stone statues in front of the door, the ancient ferocious beast gazing heavenly centipede, were enough to make people feel fear. It was as if the warlord Duan Zhanfei's prestige was overwhelming, making people feel weak in the knees. They couldn't help but kneel down and kowtow. What a marvelous carving skill! Qin Hao praised the two ancient, gazing Tianhou statues. The head of a dragon, the body of a lion, and the wings on its back. Its front legs were raised high, and it looked like a horse soaring into the sky, looking down on the world. Although it was a ferocious beast that everyone respected, it also vividly displayed Duan Zhanfei's temperament. Carrying these two things to our door to ward off evil. I'm afraid our Jiang family's people can only dream. Jiang Fan rolled up his sleeves. He didn't know if it was because of the cold weather or because the baleful aura on the gazing Tianhou was too strong, but he couldn't help but shiver. Qin Hao rolled his eyes at him. Putting the ancient, gazing Tianhou statues in front of the Jiang family's gate to ward off evil? Only you can think of that. Just as he was about to greet the guards and enter the manor. At this time, a young general in armor stepped out. He had an extraordinary bearing. The young general didn't notice Qin Hao at first, but when the two of them brushed past each other, he suddenly screamed and quickly turned around. He excitedly grabbed Qin Hao's arm. "Brother Qin Hao, is it really you? You are..." Looking at the young general's familiar face, Qin Hao gradually recalled. You Dakin once rode Duan Ziju's blazing rock and brushed past Qin Hao in the wasteland. Later, he sacrificed himself to help Qin Hao escape danger and almost died in the hands of the Dugu family's first elder, Dugu Xianxiao. That's right. It's me. I heard from the Crown Prince that you came to the northern border to participate in the Imperial Martial Grand Ceremony. I was extremely excited and really wanted to meet you. Unfortunately, I'm tied up with military affairs, and I'm under a lot of pressure. I'm ashamed. Yu Dakin shook his head in apology. His originally young and inexperienced face had now become much more mature due to the hardships of war. But what he got in return was the sacred rank of Major General. It's fine. I'll invite Brother Yu to the Drunken Immortal Pavilion for a chat some other day. Qin Hao laughed and patted Yu Dakin's shoulder. Yu Dakin was forced by Duan Ziju and originally wanted to find trouble for Qin Hao. However, this person was the descendant of a loyal minister and had an upright character. When he found Qin Hao, not only did he not start conflict, he even helped Qin Hao greatly. All right, Duan Ziju didn't make things difficult for you, did he? Recalling the past, Qin Hao asked in a low voice. How could this be? Yu Dakin's expression was very awkward. It's my fault for being narrow-minded. I shouldn't have doubted the warlord. After Yu Dakin returned, he did not hide the matter and told Duan Ziju the truth. The warlord was also present at that time. The warlord praised Yu Dakin's actions greatly. Not only did he not punish Yu Dakin, he even suggested to Xiao Yi that Yu Dakin be given a military rank. Yu Dakin pulled Qin Hao up and the two of them stood together. He pointed at the military rank badge on his chest and said in a low voice, "Look, I'm a major general now. Uncle Duan recommended me to Emperor Xiao." After this incident, the warlord's loyalty to Emperor Xiao was proven. However, Yu Dakin also knew that Duan Ziju's determination to kill Qin Hao a few years ago was also true. After all, if Qin Hao dragged down Xiao Han's growth, it would not be good for the Daoyao Empire. At least Duan Ziju has some conscience. Qin Hao nodded. His opinion of Duan Ziju changed slightly again. After all, Duan Ziju did not bully others or make things difficult for Yu Dakin. I came to find Duan Ziju today, so I won't chat with Brother Yu. See you tomorrow at Drunken Immortal Pavilion. Qin Hao smiled and cupped his fists. Yu Dakin was in a difficult position. I'm afraid I can't. I have to leave today. Uncle Duan just approved a new military rank for me. I have to quickly transport this batch of military ranks to Mount Mangxiu. They are very important. Mount Mangxiu was the border between Daliao and northern Qi. From Yu Dakin's tone, one could tell that the situation between the two countries was not optimistic. It must be the Medicine Emperor Pavilion sect pressuring Emperor Qi. Qin Hao thought. He had killed the youngest son of Jiang Ziju and crippled Jiang Zizai. It could be said that he had cut off the Jiang family's bloodline. It was a fatal blow to the Medicine Emperor Pavilion. However, the other party had placed a grudge on Xiao Yi's head and acted so quickly. Thank you, brother Yu. If there's a chance, I will thank you properly. Go quickly. Qin Hao nodded seriously. He did not dare to delay Yu Dakin's military affairs. Being loyal to the country is the duty of a subject. There is no need to talk about hard work. Brother Qin Hao, you can do it. Even if I am not at the Imperial Martial Competition, the brothers at the border have all heard of your glorious deeds of entering the top 10. Good job. We look forward to the good news of you becoming the champion. For the princess, please do your best. For the princess, hundreds of thousands of soldiers will become an iron wall to protect Daliao. Goodbye. Yu Dakin roared heroically. He turned around and surged his Yuan Qi, heading straight for the imperial city. Even a peerless genius like Duan Ziju was cruelly eliminated by his opponent. Chapter 1048. Translator, Transin Editor, Transin Chuan Yuan Wuji's potential. I won't let you down. Qin Hao clenched his fists as an uncontrollable surge of hot blood rushed to his chest. The situation was clear. Once he lost, Northern Qi would definitely take advantage of the situation to rob him. Even if Qin Hao won the championship and showed a trace of weakness, it would cause unrest in Daliao. That kind of result would be no less than the collapse of the empire 10 years ago. This small competition affected the life and death of tens of millions of soldiers. It also determined the future of Daliao. I have to defeat Zhou Wudao and that mysterious number 1 expert. Qin Hao felt that the beast in his body was about to awaken, and the power in his blood had also become stronger. Without hesitation, he called out to the guards and led Jiang Fan into the Warlord Manor. Qin Hao's reputation spread far and wide, and the soldiers of the Warlord Manor all knew him. His path was unimpeded. Perhaps because Duan Zhanfei was busy, he didn't have time to greet Qin Hao after entering the manor, let alone entertain him. During this time, Xiao Yi's mind was completely focused on the Emperor Martial Competition. As the number 1 general of the empire, Duan Zhanfei had to take charge of the situation at the border. He was most likely very busy. I know where Duan Ziju's courtyard is. Master, follow me. All right, Master. I didn't expect you to have such a wide network in Daliao. You even know the Yu army. Jiang Fan grinned as he chattered on. I really want to sew your mouth shut. Qin Hao gnashed his teeth. Jiang Fan immediately shut his mouth and obediently led Qin Hao into Duan Ziju's courtyard. Duan Ziju's courtyard was very large, taking up an area of several hundred acres. There were weapons everywhere, as well as cultivation tools of various sizes. After circling left and right until Qin Hao was disoriented, they finally found Duan Ziju somewhere in the courtyard. At this moment, Duan Ziju was sitting in a wheelchair with a basin in his arms. He was throwing fist-sized, unknown fruits into the air one by one. Across from him, the cloud-piercing flame rock, whose body had expanded to more than 10 meters in size, stood tall and straight. Wisps of flames emanated from its body. Every time Duan Ziju tossed a fruit to it, it would let out a screech and quickly devour it with its beak. After swallowing it, it would flap its wings excitedly. However, Qin Hao did not see Xinque. She must have left the Warlord Manor after suppressing Duan Ziju's injuries. Duan Ziju! Jiang Fan yelled out. Duan Ziju glanced sideways. When Jiang Fan entered his sight, he snorted disdainfully. When he saw Qin Hao standing behind Jiang Fan, Duan Ziju's expression was somewhat surprised. Who would have thought that one day you would be able to step into the Battle Lord Mansion? Duan Ziju placed the basin on the stone table and turned the wheelchair's wheels with both hands. He adjusted the wheelchair's direction and faced Qin Hao. I also didn't think that the domineering and overbearing you from back then would be knocked off the stage by someone else. Qin Hao said indifferently. You? Duan Ziju was so angry that he wanted to stand up. However, halfway through, his abdomen spasmed like a cramp. It was so painful that cold sweat dripped down his forehead. He powerlessly sat back down. Your injuries are not light. Don't move around. Sensing that Duan Ziju's injuries were acting up, Qin Hao quickly walked forward and injected a wisp of serene, tranquil water qi into his body, suppressing his ruptured organs. The serene, tranquil water qi flowed through his organs, nourishing them with a cool feeling. Duan Ziju relaxed a lot, and his complexion improved a lot. However, his body suddenly trembled, and his eyes were filled with shock. Soul, energy? Such heavy injuries were instantly suppressed, and the energy was so pure that it was comparable to a spiritual object born from heaven and earth. It was clearly not some cultivation technique. Yes, Qin Hao nodded. Duan Ziju's expression became complicated, and his facial features were slightly distorted. I didn't think that you had actually awakened the power of two souls. The current me is indeed inferior to you. After the battle between Qin Hao and Zhou Wuning in the Drunken Immortal Pavilion, Duan Ziju had secretly investigated. From a fiery sword energy left behind at the scene, he knew that it was a kind of soul fire of a high grade. At this moment, Qin Hao also admitted that he possessed the power of water souls. How could Duan Ziju not be envious? Even if he was unwilling to lower his head and admit it, the cruel reality told him that the current Qin Hao had already surpassed Duan Ziju in terms of potential. Of course, if he hadn't been severely injured and unconscious that day, and had been fortunate enough to see Qin Hao use the Dragon Soul to defeat Lu Chou, he would definitely be even more shocked and envious. If you came to laugh at me, you've seen it now. You can leave now. Duan Ziju's mood suddenly became incomparably desolate, as if he was inferior in front of Qin Hao. He turned the wheelchair around, hugged the basin on the stone table, and began to feed his fiery rock again. Laugh at you? Am I that shallow? Don't tell me that you can't guess the purpose of my visit. Qin Hao and Duan Ziju replied one after another, completely ignoring Jiang Fan's existence. Jiang Fan, who was already used to being ignored, was delighted as he stared at the fruit in Duan Ziju's basin and licked his lips greedily. Do you want to ask about Xianyuan Wuji's situation? Duan Ziju didn't seem to want to talk about this person. As he said this, a look of horror flashed across his face. Soon after, he felt humiliated and clenched his fists so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard. Is he a peak 5th level Yuan Venerate? Qin Hao asked. No, he's a mid-level one. Duan Ziju's expression turned serious. However, based on the intensity of the Yuan Qi I received, he isn't far from his peak state. Phew! Qin Hao heaved a sigh of relief. That's good. Judging from your tone, it seems like you're looking down on him. Duan Ziju frowned deeply. Then his frown deepened as he pointed at Qin Hao and said, Your cultivation has improved again? Duan Ziju was extremely shocked. It had only been a little more than a day. Was Qin Hao a ghost? Even with precious elixirs that could improve one's cultivation base, it was impossible for a martialist above the king level to have enough time to break through in just a little more than a day. A year ago, he had returned from the Blue River Mountain Range and consumed the grade 8 Venerate pill given by the War Monarch. After that, he had gone into seclusion for more than 5 months to prepare for the Emperor Martial competition. However, this fellow, Qin Hao, you've seen my water origin power just now. It can even suppress Xianyuan Wuji's powerful soul power, using it to hasten the effects of the elixirs. One's cultivation speed can't be measured by conventional means. Qin Hao explained. Even so, the shock on Duan Ziju's face didn't lessen. He stared wide-eyed and didn't say anything for a long time. How should I describe you? You're simply a monster. All right, you're amazing. However, even if you had a breakthrough, you still wouldn't be a match for Xianyuan Wuji. Qin Hao, both of us have miscalculated this time. Duan Ziju sighed heavily. They had started competing 5 years ago for the sake of this battle. When they had arrived, they had been easily trampled underfoot by others. How ironic! This proved that there was always someone better than you, and there were even more terrifying geniuses above geniuses. Chapter 1049. Translator, Nyoibo Studio Editor. Nyoibo Studio 5 years was never too late for revenge. I'm not sure. Duan Ziju tried his best to recall. The moment the dragon claw entered his body, its domineering aura dispersed his cultivation. It was abnormally fierce. It also trapped him on the ground, making him feel heavy and unable to stand up. This proved that the dragon claw contained two strange powers. However, Duan Ziju denied that it was the power of two origin spirits. Therefore, he wasn't sure if Xianyuan Wuji still had a second origin spirit as a trump card. One soul with two powers. Qin Hao was surprised after hearing the explanation. He then nodded. It wasn't rare for one soul to have two powers. Some origin spirits did have two attributes. For example, the soul of the ice bird that Duan Ru Ying had awakened. The ice bird was born with the ability to fly. When it spread its wings, its ability to fly was several times better and faster than ordinary martialists. It was also a cold bird, so it could launch ice attribute attacks. This was the so-called one soul with two powers. There is an anomaly in the bloodline of the Gravity Emperor. Qin Hao pondered. The Gravity Emperor was the patriarch of the southern region's proud god nation's Xianyuan family. He was one of the top Yuan emperors of the continent. 600 years ago, he had participated in the operation to kill Qin Hao in the Valley of the Gods. Qin Hao knew the abilities of the Gravity Emperor very well. It was obvious that Xianyuan Wuji had inherited the Gravity Emperor's bloodline and transformed his origin spirit into some kind of dragon soul. His aptitude was extraordinary. Even if he doesn't have a second origin spirit, you are still no match for him with just one soul with two powers. Duan Ziju commented bluntly. Qin Hao was at a disadvantage in terms of cultivation base. He had only become a level 8 Yuan Monarch after strengthening himself. On the other hand, Xianyuan Wuji was a level 5 Yuan Venerate. The difference between the two of them was 7 levels. Xianyuan Wuji could crush Qin Hao. Haha, you're a frog at the bottom of a well. Your horizons are too narrow. During the battle with Lu Chou, my master relied on his level 6 Yuan Monarch cultivation base to kill Lu Chou, who was a level 6 Yuan Venerate. Jiang Fan chimed in proudly. What? Duan Ziju nearly jumped in shock. A level 6 Yuan Monarch could kill a level 6 Yuan Venerate. He didn't doubt this. Since Qin Hao was standing, it meant that Lu Chou had been eliminated. Wasn't Qin Hao a little too terrifying? Qin Hao replied with a smile. Xianyuan Wuji is not a threat to me. If he's just a one-soul fighter without the enhancement of his second original soul, I would have a higher chance to defeat him than him. Even so, Qin Hao still dared not treat it carelessly. Who knew whether Xianyuan Wuji had a second original soul or not? He had to be on guard. Qin Hao, you've given me too many surprises today. Even so, do you think you could defeat Zhou Wudao? Undoubtedly, Zhou Wudao's battle strength was greater than Xianyuan Wuji's. Furthermore, there was a publicly recognized rule in the continent that the Yuan Qi quality of the East Continent's ancient martial art practitioners was stronger than that of the other 3 realms. You will know who is stronger the day after tomorrow. Qin Hao had achieved his goal in coming here, and the answers he obtained were all within his control. He turned around and left. Zhou Wudao. He was just a small obstacle along the way. His final goal was to defeat the mysterious number 1 person on the Imperial Martial Roll. Boom! There was a sudden explosion, and a large amount of rubble rose into the air and fell all over the courtyard. Duan Ziju stared and saw that before Qin Hao left, he had smashed the rockery in the courtyard with a backhand strike. You're too arrogant, too complacent. You actually dare to behave atrociously in front of me, Duan Ziju. Although I lost, do you, Qin Hao, think I'm weak and can be bullied? Duan Ziju roared angrily. Even with his injuries, He wanted to fight back against Qin Hao. Qin Hao's wanton destruction of his things was an insult to his reputation. This palm strike is to repay you for destroying Phoenix Glass Island. If you don't accept it, I'll accompany you at any time after you recover. Qin Hao's voice came from outside the courtyard. 5 years ago, Qin Hao had made a solemn vow that he would destroy the Warlord Mansion when he came to Dao Yao's imperial city. Today, he had only smashed Duan Ziju's rockery and not dug 3 feet into the ground. He had already taken 10,000 steps back. You're such a vengeful guy. Duan Ziju was so angry that his lips trembled. After a long time, he could no longer sense Qin Hao's aura. Only then did he shake his head and smile helplessly. He lamented that whoever provoked Qin Hao and hurt the people and things he cared about, even if it was just a little bit, was really unlucky, because sooner or later, he would return it in a certain situation. It's fine if you forgot. Qin Hao will remember it for you. I don't have a chance to defeat Xianyuan Wuji and Zhou Wudao. I'll go watch the final battle the day after tomorrow. Duan Ziju was inexplicably excited and expectant. He turned his wheelchair and hugged the basin on the stone table, preparing to continue feeding the fiery rock. When he looked down, the basin was empty. I'm rich. This thing seems to contain a lot of power. I wonder how it tastes? Outside the Warlord Mansion, Jiang Fan purposely fell behind Qin Hao. He carefully loosened his arms and glanced at the fruit in his pocket. The fruits that Duan Ziju fed the fiery rock were all here. He grabbed one with shifty eyes and took a big bite out of it like an apple. Then, he closed his eyes in satisfaction and chewed slowly. Gradually, 2 wisps of fire came out of his nostrils. In the next second, Jiang Fan felt like a volcano had erupted in his body. Boom! A ball of flames suddenly shot into the sky from the imperial city. It was like a plane emitting smoke mixed with Jiang Fan's wailing and howling. Chapter 1050. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations The Miserable Ending the Day After Tomorrow. The second round of the top 10 tournament began as scheduled. The winners of the first round would challenge Zhou Wudao, kill Million Knives, and Murong Zijuan in the second round. The winners of the first round were Qin Hao, Xianyuan Wuji, Xiaogua, and Qi Yuan. There were so many spectators that the competition was much more intense than it had been 3 days ago. However, Gongsun Changxing didn't give them the right to choose their opponents. Instead, they drew lots. Draw lots. Gongsun Changxing shouted in the royal tower. Millions of spectators widened their eyes and looked at the geniuses in the arena, guessing who would be promoted today. Zhou Wudao, Xianyuan Wuji, kill Million Knives, or Qin Hao. The winners would challenge the mysterious number 1 and number 2 of the Emperor's martial arts competition. Today, the identities of the number 1 and number 2 of the Emperor's martial arts competition would be revealed to the public. Everyone was looking forward to it. Many people had already set up luxurious gambling houses for the next round. The chance to take revenge is finally here. Qin Hao, you must be afraid that you will fall into the hands of Kill Million Knives. Tian Daluo, the first elder of the Moon-Severing Mansion, laughed evilly. He was very pleased. Don't worry, first elder. Once Qin Hao is hit by Kill Million Knives, he will die for sure even if he has 10 heads. God told me this in my dream last night. Mansion Master Chui said, while stroking his beard. Ha ha ha! All the elders of the Moon-Severing Mansion laughed wildly. Qin Hao and the others stood on the arena and took out a jade lot from a bamboo tube. Then they stood side by side. However, no one opened it immediately. There were 7 challengers in the second round, and one of them was destined to be defeated temporarily. Holding the jade lot, Xianyuan Wuji and the others all had their own thoughts. I'll open it first. I can't wait to kill Qin Hao and strengthen the prestige of the Moon-Severing Mansion. Kill Million Knives couldn't help but say. He swiped the top of the jade lot with his thick thumb, revealing 3 eye-catching red numbers. Round 1. I don't care who my opponent is. Xianyuan Wuji looked pretty calm as he also touched the jade with his thumb, revealing 3 red words. Round 2. After hearing Xianyuan Wuji's words, Kill Million Knives let out a sigh of relief. He felt lucky that he didn't meet Xianyuan Wuji. Next, Xiaogua, Murong Zijuan, Qi Yuan, and the others drew their lots one after another. Murong Zijuan and Qi Yuan were in the third round. Xiaogua's opponent was Xianyuan Wuji. Only Qin Hao and Zhou Wudao had not activated it yet. Moreover, Zhou Wudao was about to open it. At this moment, Kill a Million Blades was extremely nervous. He stared at Zhou Wudao's jade lot and held his breath. Whoosh! Along with a swipe of his finger, Zhou Wudao's jade stick was completely smooth without any markings. It was empty. Empty lot. Looks like I'm rather lucky. No, it's you guys who are very lucky. Because you bunch of trash that can't even withstand a single blow can still struggle at death's door for a while. Zhou Wudao shook his head rather helplessly. He was very dissatisfied that he had been given a bye. Zhou Wudao's arrogant attitude immediately aroused the other people's anger. However, to be honest, Murong Zijuan and the others really did not want to fight Zhou Wudao. Ha ha! Looks like my opponent is you. Qin Hao. The thing that Kill a Million Blades was most worried about did not happen. He was afraid that Qin Hao would be given a bye, and then he would fight Zhou Wudao. However, the situation was reversed. Zhou Wudao was actually given a bye. Needless to say, Qin Hao's jade lot was definitely number one. Open it, you piece of trash. Hurry up and open it. Let the whole world see whether it's number one or not. Are you that afraid of facing me? Are you that afraid of me? Kill a Million Blades roared unscrupulously. He was full of confidence. Qin Hao cast a glance at him, as if he was looking at an idiot. He slowly rubbed the jade lot in his hand. As expected, it was indeed number one. This indicated that Qin Hao was about to enter the stage in a magnificent manner in the first round. Ha ha ha! Brothers and elders of the Zhanyue mansion, look, Qin Hao has fallen into my hands. He is really unlucky. Also, the martial artist friends who came from afar, the incomparably arrogant sect leader, and the brothers of the Imperial Army who are maintaining order, come and see. Qin Hao is mine. Kill a Million Blades was so excited that he howled towards the sky. His two fists kept hammering his chest, making a series of bang, bang, bang. He used so much strength that it made people wonder if he would spit out a mouthful of blood. Xiaogua was not worried about his situation at all. He raised his middle finger at the excited Kill a Million Blades. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Countless middle fingers were raised from all directions, all aimed to kill a million blades and the Zhanyue Mansion sect. Yi Shuihan, Xiao Jiu, Yi Wuhan, Qinyan, the Qin family soldiers, and the Furious Bear army soldiers who were hiding among the common people, including the disciples of the Lingyun school in the Imperial Tower. Jiang Fan took the lead and raised his middle finger. Looking at the countless middle fingers that seemed to poke holes in the sky, the faces of the Zhanyue Mansion sect leader and elders suddenly changed. They were so angry that they gritted their teeth. Chapter 1051. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation 1 Sword to the West Tian Daluo nodded. He had no doubts about Kill a Thousand Knives' ability. Among the three disciples of the Zhanyue Mansion, no one dared to challenge Kill a Thousand Knives, the chief disciple of the Zhanyue Mansion. Maybe it was because Kill a Thousand Knives was too obsessed with martial arts. So he tended to be violent and had a violent personality. Many disciples in the sect, including the elders, did not have a good impression of him. Everyone preferred the tactful Kill a Thousand Knives. However, it was undeniable that Kill a Thousand Knives' combat strength was unparalleled. A Thousand Knives, please give the gift that I have carefully prepared to Qin Hao sincerely to repay the hatred of my crippled leg. Tian Daluo waved his hand, and a huge black object flew out. With a bang, it landed heavily on the arena from the royal tower. Everyone fixed their eyes on it. It was an ominous object, a coffin. Don't worry, Grand Elder. I only need one move to kill Qin Hao. Kill a Thousand Knives said proudly as he patted his chest. Qin Hao sneered disdainfully. He looked up at Tian Daluo and thought to himself, "It seems that I haven't taught you a lesson yet. Let kill, a 1,000 knives send me into the coffin with one move? That's not bad." Nodding silently, Qin Hao made a big decision. The first round begins. "The rest of you, step back." Gong Sun Changxing shouted. Xin Yuan Wuji and the others walked down the arena one by one. When Murong Zijuan and Qi Yuan walked past Qin Hao, they looked at him with sarcasm. Kill, 1,000 Knives' ability was slightly better than theirs. They thought that Qin Hao would be in a terrible state this time. If you can't even deal with a simple-minded, brawny piece of trash, you, Qin Hao, are the biggest piece of trash. Zhou Wudao turned around and said to Qin Hao as he walked down the arena. Qin Hao did not say anything. Instead, he raised his middle finger at Zhou Wudao. Zhou Wudao's face turned black and white instantly. He was furious. "Qin Hao, do you want to roll into the coffin yourself, or do you want to send you in? Choose one. Of course, no matter what you choose, the end result will be the same." Kill a Million Blades took a step forward, his aura rising. "Master, beat him up. Don't waste your breath on him. Beat him up." Jiang Fan jumped up and down in the Imperial Tower like a funny flea. "What are you jumping for? No matter how high you jump, it won't change the fact that Qin Hao is in his coffin. Don't waste your energy." Manorhead Shui mocked. "Qin Hao, I'm asking you a question. Are you mute?" Sha Wandao took another step forward, and his beginner level 5 Yuan Venerate Yuan Qi started to wreak havoc. Violent Yuan Qi gales formed around him, making him look rather intimidating. Many of the spectators below the stage involuntarily distanced themselves from the stage to avoid being accidentally injured. Qin Hao must have been shocked silly by senior apprentice brother Wan Dao's aura. That's right. Look at him. He can't even muster up the courage to speak. I heard from the great elder that Western Liang Qin Hao was a monster. In the end, he became so weak in front of senior apprentice brother Wan Dao. The disciples of the Severed Moon Mansion shook their heads and sighed. Qin Hao was too disappointing. That was right. Anyone who faced a violent monster, like senior apprentice brother Wan Dao, couldn't help but tremble in fear. Boom! Suddenly, a monstrous sword light suddenly appeared on the stage as the disciples of the Severed Moon Mansion spoke. This sword light soared thousands of feet into the sky, dispersing the clouds in the sky and falling straight on top of senior apprentice brother Wan Dao's head. Senior apprentice brother Wan Dao didn't even have time to react before his head was cut in half. The vast sword light tore his body apart and sent pieces of flesh flying into the pitch-black coffin. Bang! The lid of the coffin automatically closed. Senior apprentice brother Wan Dao's figure disappeared from the stage. The whole world fell silent. But at this moment, the sound of countless hearts beating wildly spread across the Imperial Marshal Square. The frequency was extremely consistent and became more and more intense, as if it would jump out of countless people's chests in the next second. Everyone's eyes were filled with shock as they looked at the young man with 2 strands of fluttering white hair. At this moment, half of the young man's body was covered with sacred dragon scales. 2 scarlet halos appeared in his deep eyes, and he exuded a domineering and majestic aura. How is this possible? How could he cut senior apprentice brother Wan Dao into minced meat with just one strike? What happened just now? What did I just see? Am I blind? The Imperial Marshal Square was in an uproar. Tian Daluo's face was pale. The moment senior apprentice brother Wan Dao was hit by the sword light, he seemed to have lost all his strength and fell into the chair with a plop. "Oh, my dear disciple." Mansion Master Chui was smiling brightly just a second ago, but now he was crying his heart out. In fact, even he couldn't believe it. He didn't come to his senses until the lid of the coffin had been closed for a long time. He flew down and landed on the arena. His big hand shook out a wave of air and shook open the lid of the coffin. He stuck his head out in shock and looked at the tragic and extremely miserable scene inside. Senior apprentice brother Wan Dao had been cut into nearly 1,000 pieces of uniform size and shape. It was even better than Butcher's ancestral skills. Only senior apprentice brother Wan Dao's head remained intact. Chapter 1052. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations Tactics. Do you understand? You use the power of two souls and an unparalleled advanced swordsmanship to kill million blades. Xinyuan Wuji was shocked for only a split second before he spoke calmly. Xinyuan Wuji sneered as he looked at Qin Hao, who had transformed half of his body into dragon scales. That earth-shattering sword chi was obviously the result of Qin Hao summoning the power of the dragon soul and the power of the heavenly flame. Qin Hao's swordsmanship had reached the pinnacle. This unexpected move had caught million blades off guard and caused him to be hacked to death by Qin Hao. In this case, you have no more trump cards. Zhou Wudao also saw through it and was disappointed with Qin Hao. He believed that million blades didn't deserve to use the power of two souls. As long as he waved his hand gently, Zhou Wudao was confident that he could also put million blades into a coffin. However, unlike Zhou Wudao and Xinyuan Wuji, Murong Zijuan and Qi Yuan were horrified at this moment. After all, million blades, who had been put into a coffin, had a slightly higher cultivation level than them. Didn't this mean that Qin Hao also had the ability to kill them with a single move? Something's not right. Qin Hao's aura seems to be even stronger than 3 days ago. Murong Zijuan noticed the abnormality and pointed at Qin Hao as he shouted in shock. He advanced 2 levels from level 6 Yuan Monarch to level 8 Yuan Monarch. How could it be so fast? Xinyuan Wuji immediately perceived Qin Hao's cultivation level based on his aura. So what? He is still an ant. Zhou Wudao wasn't surprised at all as he clasped his hands behind his back. He guessed that Qin Hao must have consumed his Zifu Xuanjin pill. With the medicinal efficacy of 3 level 8 supreme elixirs, it was not difficult to advance 2 levels to the Yuan Monarch realm. Zhou Wudao even faintly looked down on Qin Hao for only advancing 2 levels. It was simply a waste of his Zifu Xuanjin pill. Aya, my lackey, you died so miserably. Ah! At this moment, another earth-shattering cry came from the leather seats of the audience. The old demon imitated Manor Head Chui's actions. He rolled and crawled on the ground and began to wail loudly. Although she was crying, the laughter in her mouth reached the heavens. Ha ha! That's hilarious. Yi Shuihan pointed at the old monster. Who is the one who boasted that my idol? Now, who is the one that has ended up in such a miserable state? Little Nine raised his head, his mouth almost touching his brows. The crowd was undoubtedly mocking Tian Daluo and Mansion Master Chui. Why didn't you? Why didn't you Xiao? Mansion Chui. Why didn't you me? Why didn't you? Why didn't you? Why didn't you? N. Why didn't Yang? Why didn't you do not stop? NN's you bullshit. What the hell do you mean by suddenly using his full power? Jiang Fan, Mu Fei Yu, and the others could not stop cursing. Master Chui was truly shameless. NNNU, why didn't you stop him? Xiao Yi replied coldly. Don't forget that you're an 8th-stage martial emperor. You can't even protect your own disciple. Really, if it weren't for the fact that he was a great emperor, Xiao Yi would have said, you're really an old piece of trash. Puffed. Mansion Master Chui spat out another mouthful of blood. Should he stop him? Would he dare? Besides Xiao Yi, who would dare to interfere in the Diwu tournament? Moreover, Mansion Master Chui didn't know how to react. He was only happy. But no matter what, Xiao Yi didn't intend to stand up for Zhanyue Mansion. Good, very good. I'll remember this grudge. Of course, I'll report Dao's misfortune to the Mansion Master, like how Pavilion Master Jiang reported to the Holy Emperor. Mansion Master Chui clenched his fists so hard that they were about to shatter. He was the current ruler of Zhanyue Mansion. However, he had the support of an emperor-stage martial ancestor who was in seclusion. Otherwise, Zhanyue Mansion wouldn't dare to act recklessly in front of the Murong royal family of Northern Yin. He put the coffin into a space ring and flew back to the Imperial Tower. He wasn't going to leave. He had to see how Qin Hao would end up. Next, besides Zhou Wudao and Xinyuan Wuji, the first and second strongest on the Diwu ranking list would also appear. The first round, Shiliang Qiangbin's chief disciple, Qin Hao wins. Gongsun Changxing called out enthusiastically. He was more and more pleased with Qin Hao's performance. As for the threat in Mansion Master Chui's words, Gongsun Changxing didn't feel any pressure. Holy Emperor? Mansion Master? Daliao had been in Beijiang for thousands of years. Its foundation was so strong that 2 Yuan kings couldn't shake it. Next, it was Caiogwa's turn to fight against Xian Yuan Wuji. To the commoners, there was basically no suspense in this battle. Qi Xiaohua would definitely lose. When Caiogwa defeated Jiang Zizai, he had used up all his strength and barely won. However, Xian Yuan Wuji easily injured Daliao's warlord mansion with one palm strike. Duan Ziju was quite prestigious in the eyes of the people. After all, he was the son of the warlord. Even Duan Ziju couldn't withstand Xian Yuan Wuji's one palm strike, not to mention the Prince of Spinning Country in Western Liang. Therefore, Duan Ziju was not qualified to challenge Xian Yuan Wuji, who came from a big country in South Territory. That was the truth. In fact, before Xian Yuan Wuji stepped onto the arena, Caiogwa had already admitted defeat. Chapter 1053. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations 9-headed Golden Lion Forfeit. Xian Yuan Wuji paused with a shocked expression. Immediately after, this trace of astonishment turned into unparalleled anger. If it were someone else, they would be eager for their opponent to forfeit so that they could show off their power. However, for Xian Yuan Wuji, Caiogwa was clearly looking down on Xian Yuan Wuji. However, when Qin Hao and Caiogwa nodded and smiled, Xian Yuan Wuji understood everything. So you want to shorten the time and speed up the pace of the competition so that Qin Hao can strike while the iron is hot and fight me with his full strength. Xian Yuan Wuji clenched his fists. Caiogwa bet the final victory on Qin Hao. What a desperate gamble. It's none of your business what I choose. Caiogwa glared at him. Hee, you are too naive, too stupid, and too ridiculous. You think that Qin Hao is qualified to fight with me just because he killed an idiot with strong limbs? You really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. That's good because Qin Hao will be kicked out of the Emperor Martial competition faster. Xian Yuan Wuji stepped off the stage with a sneer. However, he stopped and looked at Caiogwa. Sorry, I have to change my words. Qin Hao will not be kicked out of the competition. Instead, he will die in the gladiator arena faster. Humph! Qin Hao and Caiogwa ignored Xian Yuan Wuji's arrogant words. The two returned to the special area for leather seats and sat beside Duan Ziju. Then, they focused on the gladiator arena. The next battle was between Murong Zijuan and Qi Yuan. When 2 tigers fought, one of them was bound to lose. Your performance just now made me a little surprised. Duan Ziju turned his head to look at Qin Hao, and there was a hint of admiration in his tone. It's just killing 10,000 people. It's not worth mentioning. You'd better save your surprise for later. You will be even more surprised when I go on the stage. Qin Hao replied calmly. He was also quite excited. In fact, even he wasn't completely confident that he could kill 10,000 people with a single slash. Qin Hao only instinctively activated 50% of his draconic force to do a simple test, but the results of the test were quite ideal. Of course, there was also the factor of kill, 1,000 knives carelessness. But no matter what, after confirming that Qin Hao had leveled up by 2 levels, the increase in his combat strength was not just a little bit in the eyes of others, but a considerable leap. Aren't you being a little too modest for your own good? All right, I'll keep my eyes open and wait and see. Duan Ziju couldn't help but clench his fists tightly. This feeling of excitement was even more exhilarating than when he went up on stage to compete. Even he didn't understand why. I believe in your ability and composure. But your eyes... At this time, Dan Xian's worried voice came from next door. If he continued, he would have to fight one of Xian Yuan Wuji and Zhou Wudao. The strength of these 2 people's cultivation and potential were rarely seen among the younger generation. Plus, Qin Hao had indeed not returned to his peak state. How could Dan Xian not worry about him? To tell you the truth, Master, when I broke through yesterday, my eyesight faintly recovered. Although it's not like a normal person, I have a strong feeling that my eyes might completely recover after an unprecedented fierce collision. Qin Hao was not talking nonsense, nor was he comforting Dan Xian. He was telling the truth. Really, big brother, you're not lying? Idle, don't scare me. Everyone was overjoyed as they all stood up and looked at Qin Hao. Let the facts prove my feeling. Qin Hao revealed a mysterious smile as his mind shrouded the platform. Two bright lights flashed across his deep eyes. At this moment, the fiercest battle between Murong Zijuan and Qi Yuan had also ignited on the platform. The two of them were simply fighting to the death, with no clear winner. The battle was unprecedentedly fierce and unparalleled. In fact, Murong Zijuan and Qi Yuan's cultivation were on par with each other. Perhaps Murong Zijuan was slightly stronger in terms of technique. However, if they did not fight to the death, it would be extremely difficult for them to win against each other. And now, it was time for them to fight to the death. The two of them opened their natal origin spirits at the same time. Murong Zijuan's origin spirit was the same as the other princes of the Northern Yin imperial family. It was also a domineering lion. Qin Hao had seen this kind of lion soul from Murong Wenlong in the children's group competition. However, it was different from Murong Wenlong's. Murong Zijuan's was a 9-headed golden lion with 9 heads. Its body was also very shocking. It was like a giant mountain descending from the sky. The 9 heads roared at the same time, releasing a roar that shook the heavens and earth. The earth-shattering airwaves were like a demonic wind, making the millions of spectators unable to stand steadily. It's indeed the Murong family's peak bloodline, the 9-headed golden lion's physique. It's rumored that every descendant of the Murong family who has a 9-headed golden lion will be able to cultivate to the emperor realm in the future. No wonder Murong Zijuan was directly conferred the position of crown prince by the Yan emperor. The treatment he received since he was young far surpasses the other princes. Facing the mighty giant lion in the sky, even Palace Master Cui could not help but sigh in admiration. In terms of physique and bloodline, Palace Master Cui did not have the qualifications to compare with Murong Zijuan. In front of the Murong family's strongest origin spirit bloodline, a trace of reverence rose in his heart. In the imperial tower, all the sect masters and sect masters were the same. Chapter 1054. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations 9 Heavens Celestial Demon Blast. At this moment, all the warriors in the Imperial Martial Square, including Xiaohua and Yishuehan, were shocked by the aura of the 9-headed golden lion. Murong Zijuan's followers even took the opportunity to say that only the soul of the 9-headed golden lion was worthy of Princess Jingwei. It was Emperor Zhao's great fortune to have Murong Zijuan as his son-in-law. Instantly, Murong Zijuan's fame was pushed to the peak. Black Tortoise sacred body open. Under such great pressure, Qi Yuan immediately activated his family's supreme bloodline. Roar! The roars of the dragon and the black tortoise came from the sky. A huge creature that covered more than 10 miles like a huge dark cloud pressed down on the Imperial Martial Square, making people feel suffocated. This creature looked like an ancient black tortoise. However, its ability and battle strength were obviously stronger than the ancient black tortoise, because it wasn't a black snake on the tortoise's back, but a ferocious black dragon. After the black tortoise arrived, it immediately confronted the 9-headed golden lion in the sky. Both sides kept showing off and roaring. The friction only lasted for a moment. Prince Qi Yuan's bloodline is actually the most perfect bloodline in the royal family of Northern Qi. It's said that the perfect black tortoise sacred body is not weaker than the 9-headed golden lion at all. When he grows up, he will definitely become an emperor-level powerhouse. But why hasn't Prince Qi Yuan been appointed as the crown prince by Emperor Duo Bao? It's really hard to figure out. The scene was very heated. Many masters of the aristocratic families in northern border were discussing secretly. When Xianyuan Wuji and Zhou Wudao looked up and saw the 9-headed golden lion and the black tortoise in the sky, they just sneered. They didn't feel much pressure. This kind of physique was indeed not bad. However, their bloodline power was above that of the nine-headed golden lion and the black tortoise. Qi Yuan, are you really going to fight me to the death for the position of the son-in-law? Murong Zijuan's pressure rose. He floated in the sky and roared. You're already the crown prince of northern Yen. You'll become the next emperor of Yen. As for me, I'm just a prince. My status is inferior to yours. I want to ask you, why must you fight with me for Jinghua? Qi Yuan was unwilling to give in and roared in reply. Why do I, Murong Zijuan, need to explain my actions to you? It's not too late for you to back out now. Otherwise, under my full strength, you'll either die or be crippled. Murong Zijuan was determined not to reveal his intentions. In order to achieve this goal, his father, the Yen Emperor, was even willing to endure the pain and let him marry into Xiao Yi's family. Ha! We are well aware of what your Murong family is doing. Since you're not willing to retreat, then let's fight. Qi Yuan was clear that the Murong family's goal was the same as his Qi family's. He raised his hand, and sparkling and translucent black water shot out from the giant turtle's mouth. As the light of the water streaked across the sky, space shattered, and huge waves surged. The black dragon on the tortoise's back also tightened its body. Once it attacked, it would definitely shake the heavens and earth. 9 Heavens Celestial Demon Blast. Murong Zijuan made the first move. His palms pushed out with all his strength. The 9 heads of the sacred lion source spirit behind him roared out waves of light. The 9 waves of light seemed to pierce through the sky. With a crackling sound, they turned into 9 strange arcs and fell towards Qi Yuan's position. Qi Yuan clenched his teeth. Of course he knew that the 9 Heavens Demon God Blast was one of the Murong family's most shocking source spirit attack methods. Without holding anything back, Qi Yuan swung his arm with all his might. The black water behind him surged into the sky. The black dragon on the turtle's back was like a loach in the water. It plunged into the black water and disappeared without a trace. But everyone could feel that there was a fatal threat quickly approaching Murong Zijuan's position. At this moment, the outcome was about to be decided. The two of them had a tacit understanding and did not use the most terrifying fusion technique of their source spirits. Murong Zijuan and Qi Yuan were clear that if they absorbed their souls into their bodies, not to mention the Imperial Martial Plaza, the entire Imperial City would not be able to withstand the effects of the 9-headed lion spirit and the dragon tortoise martial spirit. Boom, 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 boom. An earth-shattering explosion was heard. 9 beams of light shot through the black water and hit Qi Yuan. Blood spurted out of Qi Yuan's mouth as he fell from the sky with disheveled hair. 9 transparent holes had been blasted into his body. At the same time, a blood-curdling scream was heard from Murong Zijuan's direction. Everyone saw a ball of intense black light suddenly wrap around Murong Zijuan's body and explode with a loud bang. However, Murong Zijuan did not fall from the sky like Qi Yuan in the black smoke after the explosion. Instead, he was still floating in the air and frantically swallowing elixirs. Bang! Qi Yuan fell off the battle stage. The stone slab shattered, and the ground sank more than 2 meters deep. The northern Qi kingdom's ministers and generals seated in the imperial building were like wolves as they pounced on Qi Yuan and shouted, "First Prince! First Prince!" More than a dozen high-level Yuan venerates worked at the same time to suppress Qi Yuan's injuries. Murong Zijuan, you despicable and shameless thing, you actually plotted against me. Qi Yuan ignored his injuries and pointed at Murong Zijuan, who was floating in the air. The hatred in his eyes seemed to be able to tear apart everyone around him. He had used the barrier formed by the black water to resist the bombardment of the 9-headed golden lion. The Northern Territory's Qi family's black tortoise defensive technique was famous. Even Murong Zijuan would not be able to easily break the black water barrier at the same level. This was because Murong Zijuan had taken out a bottle of elixirs at the last minute and swallowed them. After that, his cultivation had suddenly soared, and he had reached the mid-tier of the 5th level Yuan Venerate. Chapter 1055. Translator. Hinyi Translations Editor. Hinyi Translations, a terrifying variable, being despicable and shameless, is also a part of strength. The winner takes all. A loss is a loss. What's the use of quibbling? You can only blame yourself for not being as prepared as I am. Moreover, you secretly used Emperor Duobao's evil nether spike during the Black Dragon attack. Do you think I don't know? Otherwise, I wouldn't have been so severely injured. Blood gushed out of Murong Zijuan's mouth, making him look miserable. He pointed at the bottom of his feet. His boots were gone, and his trousers were torn apart, revealing his broken skin. At this moment, black chi was emitting from his broken flesh. He swallowed a large amount of elixirs while suppressing his injuries and dispelling the black chi in his body. At that critical moment, fortunately, I used the Divine Splendor floor to offset most of the evil Nether Spike's power. Otherwise, I'm afraid I was the one who fell into your trap. Haha, it's funny. The Divine Splendor floor was originally developed by your father. When I was 1 month old, he personally sent it to Northern Yen. Now, he blocked the critical attack for me and contributed to your defeat. You should go home and find your father to settle the score. Haha. Murong Zijuan laughed as blood flowed out of his mouth nonstop. He was extremely crazy. He was really too excited. He had finally defeated Qi Yuan, who was equally as famous as him, and proved that he was the best candidate to marry Xiaohan. Qi Yuan fainted from anger after hearing this. The officials of Northern Qi were so frightened that they quickly carried him to the Imperial Tower for Daliao's Imperial physicians and alchemists to treat him. Congratulations, Crown Prince of Northern Yin, Murong Zijuan, for winning. Gongsun Chongqing announced the result. Murong Zijuan walked down from the arena under everyone's gaze. It was true that he had won the battle, but he had paid a terrible price. There was still Qi Yuan's Black Dragon Qi in his body, and his battle strength had been severely damaged. However, he would not back down. He had already come this far. How could he be willing to back down? All right. Next, Qin Hao, Xinyuan Wuji, Zhou Wudao, and Crown Prince Zijuan, please step onto the arena again for the final battle of this round. After this battle, the remaining two will welcome the arrival of the number 1 and number 2 on the Imperial Martial ranking. Even if you are unluckily, you will be Imperial Martial Competition's number 1. You will still be qualified for 3rd place. After everyone took a short break, Gongsun Chongqing allowed the competition to continue. Qin Hao, Xinyuan Wuji, Zhou Wudao, and Murong Zijuan, who had been severely wounded, returned to the ring and drew their opponents. Compared to Crown Prince Zijun, the condition of Qin Hao and the others was a little too good. Qin Hao did not consume too much energy after killing tens of thousands of people with a single slash. Even if he did, he had already rested enough. Xinyuan Wuji won the match with Xiaogua without any loss. As for Zhou Wudao, he was given a bye and couldn't be any more perfect. Looking at the 3 neatly dressed people, and then looking at his own appearance, Murong Zijuan couldn't help but curse the old ancestor of the Qiyuan family. They opened the jade slips in their hands. This round was also full of drama. In the first round, Zhou Wudao versus Xinyuan Wuji. The second match was between Qin Hao and Murong Zijuan. All right, Qin Hao and Crown Prince Zijuan, please get off the stage first, Gongsun Zhongxing said. After hearing Gongsun Zhongxing's words, everyone focused their eyes on the 2 supreme geniuses, Zhou Wudao and Xinyuan Wuji. They were the most dazzling and mysterious contestants in the Emperor Martial competition and were recognized as the strongest. If they were to fight, who would come out on top? Qin Hao and Murong Zijuan nodded as they prepared to leave. No need. I will copy the match with Duan Ziju and send Zhou Wudao back to the East Continent with a single move. Xinyuan Wuji waved his hand domineeringly, indicating that Qin Hao and Murong Zijuan didn't need to leave. Qin Hao and Murong Zijuan couldn't help but stop. Oh, send me back to the East Continent with a single move? All of a sudden, 2 sharp eyes flashed out of Zhou Wudao's pupils and deeply nailed into Xinyuan Wuji's pupils like 2 sharp thorns. Xianyuan Wuji's body quivered as he staggered back a few steps. His consciousness was almost shattered by the two sharp eyes. His mind was in chaos while blood spurted out of his mouth and dyed the front part of his clothes red. Closely after that, Xianyuan Wuji made an extremely shocking movement in front of 1 million people. "I'm sorry. I sincerely apologize for my arrogant and stupid words. I hope you can forgive me. I admit defeat." Puff! Xianyuan Wuji knelt down in front of Zhou Wudao's feet as he quivered all over due to extreme fear. He didn't dare to raise his head. He didn't dare to touch Zhou Wudao's eyes. At this moment, Xianyuan Wuji's face was filled with unprecedented fear as cold sweat flowed down his back. "You're just SOSO, a genius from a big country in the South Domain. You know your limits. Piss off." Zhou Wudao casually raised his leg and kicked Xianyuan Wuji's face, trampling on his dignity and kicking him off the stage. By contrast, Xianyuan Wuji curled up on the ground and kept quivering like a little girl who was frightened by a demon. He didn't dare to resist at all. This scene simply drove 1 million people crazy. No way. Xianyuan Wuji directly admitted defeat? Additionally, after being kicked by Zhou Wudao, he didn't care about his dignity at all. He didn't dare to resist at all. Is he the arrogant guy who defeated Duan Ziju? "I'm sorry, Duan Ziju. I might have poked your sore spot." Little Nine smirked towards Duan Ziju in the wheelchair bashfully. At this moment, Yi Shuihan, Xiaogua, and Qinyan were pretty shocked. They really didn't understand why Xianyuan Wuji could have such a terrifying battle strength, which was not weaker than that of Zhou Wudao. Why was he so afraid of Zhou Wuji? With only one eye light of Zhou Wuji, he was so scared that he even had shadow. That was too unimaginable. Chapter 1056. Translator, Transin Editor, Transin allocating the champion creek. Duan Ziju clenched his fists so tightly that the veins on his fists bulged. He bit his deltoid muscles so hard that they creaked. He felt extremely uncomfortable. He really didn't dare to believe it. He felt ashamed for Xianyuan Wuji. He felt even more humiliated for himself. Didn't this mean that he, Duan Ziju, didn't even have the qualifications to make Zhou Wudao cast a glance at him? Qin Hao, listen carefully. I forbid you from admitting defeat. You are not allowed to lower your head to anyone. No matter how strong your opponent is, you have to die on the stage. DUF asterisk, can you hear me? Do you hear me? Duan Ziju suddenly seemed to have gone crazy. He pressed his hands on the armrests of his wheelchair and stood up straight. If he wasn't severely injured, he might have rushed to the stage impulsively. "Ziju, sit down." A slightly dignified voice came from the Imperial Tower. Duan Zhanfei's voice contained a trace of heartache. He also felt that it was unfair for his son. However, no matter what, Dalyao's son shouldn't lose his composure like this. As the War King muttered to himself, Duan Ziju instantly calmed down and sat down. However, the anxiety in his eyes didn't lessen at all. He still hadn't received a reply from Qin Hao. "I promise you." Qin Hao looked over. Whoosh! Duan Ziju finally felt relieved. He loosened his clenched fists and said, "I'm sorry for making you take the risk alone. For Xiaohan's future, I hope you can fight with your life." "Please." "I will." Qin Hao nodded solemnly. At this moment, an invisible pressure quietly descended on Qin Hao from Zhou Wudao's position. Duan Ziju sensed that Zhou Wudao had launched a soul attack at Xianyuan Wuji, shocking his mind and completely crushing his will. That was why Xianyuan Wuji did such an unbearable thing. The strength of that soul power wasn't any weaker than Qin Hao's Tier 18 Emperor-level strength. Of course, this Tier 18 spiritual power was only a small part of Qin Hao's complete dilly, but it was enough to make Qin Hao wary. It was clear that Zhou Wudao's current soul power was not inferior to Qin Hao's in the slightest. Could it be that his eyes are like Yuan Huai's? Does he also have an unfathomable eye technique? Qin Hao thought to himself, frowning. There are many types of ocular techniques. Some of them could materialize and turn into sharp attacks. Some could confuse one's mind, causing one's mind to be in a mess, causing one to be unable to differentiate between north, south, east, and west. However, this sort of technique did not possess any offensive power. There were also those like Zhou Wudao, who could activate the soul magnetic field and forcefully crush the consciousness of others. No matter what kind of technique it was comparable to a second source spirit. Have you all not recovered from the shock yet? Could it be that he was secretly guessing my strength? To tell the two of you the truth, we are not martial artists of the same realm. If you give up earlier, you could survive like Xianyuan Wuji. Zhou Wudao put his hands behind his back and sent a message, breaking the silence of the entire Imperial Martial Plaza. His words also made thousands of martial artists feel ashamed and indignant. Not martial artists of the same realm. Only a god had the qualifications to call himself that. Zhou Wudao actually boasted so shamelessly. Did he think of himself as a god? Although I don't want to do this, and admitting defeat is even more painful than killing me, Lord Zhou Wudao has the qualifications to call himself a god. I advise you all to get down and worship him together with me. Xianyuan Wuji finally recovered from his fear. He stood up trembling and raised his head to shout at Qin Hao and Murong Zijuan on the stage. Gulp! Murong Zijuan subconsciously swallowed his saliva. He felt that Zhou Wudao was too unfathomable, making him feel a chill down his spine. Admit defeat? It's impossible to admit defeat. No matter what bloodline you have, how many source spirits and trump cards you have. After I take care of Murong Zijuan, let's fight to our heart's content. Qin Hao glanced at Gongsun Chongqing. Gongsun Chongqing understood tacitly and waved the horsetail whisk in his hand. Qin Hao against Crown Prince Zijuan. Irrelevant people, get down. You won't shed tears until you see the coffin. If you make Lord Zhou Wudao use his full strength, I swear that I will regret it. Xianyuan Wuji roared with dissatisfaction. You could be a dog, but don't drag others down with you. Please get lost. Qin Hao no longer had any good impression of Xianyuan Wuji. This guy really didn't deserve to stand on the Imperial Martial Plaza. Stubborn. Zhou Wudao snorted and was about to get down. No need. Murong Zijuan stopped Zhou Wudao and became much more respectful. He didn't even treat himself as a crown prince and said, Big brother Zhou, you don't need to get down. I can take care of Qin Hao with one move. After I take care of him, we brothers will have a lot of time to discuss how to distribute the champion's fruits. In other words, Murong Zijuan didn't dare to hope to fight with Zhou Wudao again and was prepared to use benefits to tempt him. Oh, then I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of precious things you will use to exchange for the champion's throne. Zhou Wudao coldly smiled and was filled with contempt. If you're done talking, then please make your move. Qin Hao was impatient to the extreme. He swept his palm at Zhou Wudao's feet, and the red lotus soul fire exploded. The fire spread and scared Zhou Wudao, causing him to retreat a few steps. Come. Qin Hao took a stance and faced Murong Zijuan. Making a move against my beloved big brother Zhou Wudao, you, Qin Hao, have committed an unforgivable crime. You're courting death. Chapter 1057. Translator, Exodus Tales Editor. Exodus Tales, are you trying to scare me? The size of one's fist determined the strength of one's position. That was true. Of course, before we fight, I have a proposal for you. Rather than a proposal, it's more of a benefit for you. Murong Zijuan kept Lin Yun in suspense and continued. As long as you give up this match, admit defeat, and swear that you will submit to me, the great Yin Empire will be yours in the future. I promise you that in the future, the great Yin Empire will have a lot of weight for you. You can even be bestowed with the title of Grand Duke for eternity. Due to his injuries, Murong Zijuan really didn't want to fight with Qin Hao. If he used his trump card on Qin Hao, he would lose his bargaining chip to negotiate with Zhou Wudao. He needed to use his trump card to threaten Zhou Wudao. The title of Grand Duke of the Great Yin Empire is really tempting. Although the title of Grand Duke is nothing compared to Daliao's unique position as the Emperor's son-in-law. However, Qin Hao should know that not only is crowned Prince Zijuan and the powerful Zhou Wudao blocking his path, but there are also the mysterious first and second in the Imperial Martial Palace. Exchanging the title of Grand Duke of the Great Yin Empire with an unpredictable outcome is a profitable deal. The cultivators below the stage started to discuss. Many of them were tempted by Murong Zijuan's offer. "You want me to give up the match and submit to you? Are you daydreaming?" Qin Hao sneered. He wouldn't agree to it. "Qin Hao, if you don't submit to me, how can I bestow the title of Grand Duke to you?" Murong Zijuan was a little anxious. The title of Grand Duke was a dangerous title with power and territory. It wasn't just for show. It could be said to be a feudal lord with military power that could change the fate of the Great Yin Empire. "If you don't like the position, then I'll make an exception and make you a prince of the Great Yin Empire with a different surname. Once I ascend the throne, I'll let you rule the world. How about that?" Qin Hao didn't agree for a long time. Murong Zijuan clenched his teeth and increased the bargaining chip. His heart was bleeding. His words immediately caused an uproar. It was indeed unprecedented for the Great Yin Empire to have a prince with a different surname. Not to mention ordinary martial artists. Even some sect masters were tempted. They wished they could become Qin Hao and nod their heads in agreement. Duan Ziju's eyes were filled with anxiety. He was afraid that Qin Hao wouldn't be able to resist Murong Zijuan's temptation. After all, in terms of national strength, Daliao was not as strong as Northern Yin. The Northern Yin king's position was not much lower than Xiao Yi's. Xiao Yi was very calm at this moment, and there was even a look of interest in his eyes. In the past, he had only tested Qin Hao's ability, but had neglected his temperament. Now, he wanted to see how Qin Hao would choose. Qin Hao's choice would also determine Xiao Han's position in his heart. "You're blabbering on and on. What you're trying to say is that Xiao Han is equivalent to a bargaining chip. If your bargaining chip is big enough, then I can directly abandon Xiao Han, right? Murong Zijuan, I used to think that you were a big shot in Beijiang. Now it seems like you're just trash and scum. You don't deserve to stand on the sacred platform of the Emperor Martial competition. Cut the crap and let's fight." Qin Hao rejected firmly as the fiery red lotus aura surged around him. Seeing his resolute attitude, some people shook their heads while others nodded. Some people sighed. "Qin Hao, you really don't know how to appreciate favors. Do you really think you can defeat me and my big brother Zhou Wudao and become the prince consort of Daliao? All right, I'll let you experience this prince's terrifying cultivation." Murong Zijuan was extremely annoyed. He took out another bottle and poured all the elixir pills in it into his mouth. He had taken out this bottle during his battle with Qi Yuan. There was no doubt that the elixir pills inside had helped him break through to the mid-level of the 5th level Yuan Venerate temporarily. After he consumed them, Murong Zijuan's aura, which had fallen back to the initial level, started to climb crazily once again mid-level. Peak. The pinnacle of the 5th level Yuan Venerate. Wang. Powerful energy spread from his body as Murong Zijuan broke through the 5th level barrier and reached the 6th level Yuan Venerate. His aura stabilized after he broke through to the peak of the 6th level Yuan Venerate. This scene made Zhou Wudao, who was on the stage, slightly change his expression. When a martialist reached the late stage of the martial path, every advancement was extremely difficult. It was like a natural chasm. Although Murong Zijuan had broken through with the help of the elixir pills and would fall back again when the time was up, it was still enough to shock people. Murong Zijuan's face twisted intensely as though he was in great pain. His body was also suffering from the impact of the elixir while he had obtained the power to soar. "How is it, Qin Hao? Do you still have the guts to compete with me now? If you withdraw now, my words will still count. You also saw how I used the 9-headed golden lion source spirit. A mere 8th level Yuan monarch like you simply can't withstand it." Murong Zijuan endured the pain and released the immense pressure as he looked at Qin Hao once again. This sudden turn of events made Xiaogua and the others tremble. Duan Ziju could feel the terrifying power emanating from Murong Zijuan, even though he was thousands of meters away from the arena. He knew that he wouldn't be able to withstand a single blow from this overwhelming power. If they fought, his outcome would be even more severe than when he had been defeated by Xinyuan Wuji. Brat, Qin Hao, Master, you have a hold on. The old demon, Dan Xian, and Yilong Yuan were so nervous that they broke out in cold sweat. However, Qin Hao's expression didn't change. He even smirked as he pointed at Murong Zijuan and said, "Is this your trump card?" "That's right. This is my trump card. Are you afraid?" Murong Zijuan replied. He firmly believed that Qin Hao was pretending to be calm. He was definitely panicking inside. After all, even Zhou Wudao's expression had changed. This meant that Murong Zijuan was important enough to attract Zhou Wudao's attention. How could Qin Hao not be afraid? Ha ha ha. I, Qin Hao, have seen countless people and seen stupid people. However, this is the first time I've seen someone stupider than a pig like you. That's right. You are indeed very strong now. Under normal circumstances, you would be able to scare away martialists of a higher level than me. Unfortunately, Qin Hao shook his head. No matter how powerful you are, even if you become a peak Yuan Venerate or even an emperor, what's the use of a dying Yuan Venerate? Qin Hao spread his arms. Murong Zijuan was only putting up a strong front. He had basically been beaten half to death by Qi Yuan in the previous battle. Therefore, what could a seriously injured 6th-level Yuan Venerate or even a seriously injured Yuan Venerate do if they found it difficult to even breathe? That's why I say that you are really stupid beyond redemption. You have wasted the miraculous elixir that your father, the Yin Emperor, prepared for you. Qin Hao said. Ha ha ha. Xiaohua held his stomach as he guffawed. He was laughing so hard that tears were about to flow out of his eyes. Duan Ziju's tense nerves relaxed in an instant as a smile returned to his face. That's right. If Murong Zijuan hadn't been seriously injured, he would have had a difficult labor. Most importantly, Qi Yuan's black dragon Qi still remained in his body. It was difficult for him to even suppress his injuries, so how could he have the strength to fight? Furthermore, it would take him at least 10 days to half a month to recover from his injuries. Even if he used the most miraculous elixir, he wouldn't be able to recover from it. Recovering in 10 days to half a month was already Duan Ziju's highest evaluation of Murong Zijuan. We were frightened by his external strength and actually overlooked his weakness. Our foresight is inferior to Qin Hao's. Duan Ziju admitted defeat. Chapter 1058. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations Zhou Wudao. Don't run. Qin Hao was right. No matter how powerful a peak 6th-level Yuan Venerate was, what was the use if he couldn't use his cultivation? I've given in repeatedly, yet you don't know how to be grateful and push me to the brink of insanity? Fine, you asked for it. Qin Hao, look at this. Murong Zijuan roared furiously and stretched out his palm toward Qin Hao. On his index finger was an exceptionally eye-catching green jade ring that was emitting a lustrous light. As he channeled his energy into the ring, a suffocating power began to emanate from the ring. What is that? Ling Tian ring. Oh my god. Jiang Fan couldn't help but exclaim in shock when he saw it. Wasn't the ring Murong Zijuan was wearing the Ling Tian jade ring that he had used as a wager on Mount Lanchuan? The Ling Tian jade ring was infused with 30% of the Yin Emperor's cultivation. It could withstand any attack from a 6th-level martial monarch and form a lethal storm that could devour the enemy. Jiang Fan had used the Ling Tian jade ring to kill more than 100 high-level Yuan monarchs and 2 peak Yuan venerates. The shocking scene was still fresh in his mind. How could he not be shocked? But why was the Ling Tian jade ring back in Murong Zijuan's hands? It should have been shattered. Although the Ling Tian jade ring in my hand is far less powerful than the one in the past, it is made of tough material and contains nearly 10% of my father's cultivation. Killing a 1st-level martial monarch is not a problem at all. Qin Hao, do you dare say that your cultivation is stronger than a 1st-level martial monarch? If you are stronger than a 1st-stage primitive emperor, I, Murong Zijuan, will immediately kneel down and admit defeat. Otherwise, you will be ruthlessly torn to pieces. Murong Zijuan's eyes widened, and the veins on his forehead bulged. He was extremely furious. The Ling Tian Jade Ring was what he was going to rely on to negotiate with Zhou Wudao. He had no choice but to take it out now. Qin Hao is in danger now. Xiao Yi secretly clenched his fist and frowned. Emperor Yuan was the strongest representative of the entire continent. The amount of Yuan dilly was terrifying, and there were very few items in the world that could store it. But the Yin Emperor was able to find such a miraculous jade artifact to store his power. Although it was only 10%, what Murong Zijuan said wasn't empty talk. Once it hit Qin Hao, that 10% power was enough to turn him into minced meat. At this moment, Xiao Yi was sweating profusely for Qin Hao, but there was nothing he could do. There was no way to stop the competition. What a ferocious killing weapon. Qi Yuan's defeat in your hands is understandable. Moreover, he should be glad that he didn't have a taste of the heaven-ascending jade bracelet, Zhou Wudao said with a shocked expression. Subconsciously, he quickly distanced himself from the area where Qin Hao and Murong Zijuan were standing so that he wouldn't be affected by the explosion of Ling Tian's jade bracelet. 10% of Emperor Yuan's strength was no joke. Qin Hao, are you still not going to kneel down and admit defeat? Murong Zijuan raised his hand up high and proudly displayed his heaven-ascending jade bracelet to everyone. It was as if there was a heavy mountain in his palm that could bury Qin Hao in hell. A power that can even tear a first-stage origin sovereign into pieces? I wonder which one is stronger compared to my Golden Bell protection. Let's go all out. Qin Hao gritted his teeth and activated the water wind steps. His figure quickly rushed forward. At this moment, the indestructible reincarnation technique was activated, triggering the divine artifact Great Void Cauldron. A thick layer of golden light bloomed on his body. For a woman, I, Murong Zijuan, really admire your courage to seek death. I'm so impressed that I prostrate myself on all fours. Go to hell. Murong Zijuan let out a crazy scream. Seeing Qin Hao rushing over, he quickly took off the heaven-ascending jade bracelet and threw it forward. Then, he covered his head and fled in the opposite direction. Even if his cultivation had risen to the peak of the 6th stage, he still didn't have the courage to come into contact with the explosion of the heaven-ascending jade bracelet. Pa! Along with the sound of something shattering, it spread throughout the arena. In an instant, a monstrous hurricane appeared out of thin air at the location where the heaven-ascending jade bracelet shattered. It rose into the sky, majestic and spectacular. It connected the sky and the ground like a black python, terrifying everyone. Almost as soon as the hurricane appeared, it immediately swallowed Qin Hao, who was rushing over. Within the hurricane, there was also a wave of scalp-numbing rubbing sounds. The creaking sounds were loud, as if bones were being crushed. Brother Qin Hao, Xiao Han, who was sitting on the majestic phoenix seat, finally couldn't sit still anymore. She had completely lost her image as she jumped up without caring about anything, wanting to rush towards the hurricane on the arena. However, her body was immediately confined in place by Xiao Yi. Silly girl, don't be rash. Qin Hao isn't as weak as you think. He's still resisting. Xiao Yi transmitted his voice. He could clearly sense that Qin Hao, who was trapped in the hurricane, wasn't weakened in the slightest. Instead, his aura had become even stronger. At this moment, within the hurricane, a dazzling golden sphere, like a golden bell, was frantically resisting the friction and crushing of the hurricane. Inside the golden bell shield, Qin Hao transformed into his half-dragon form. The dragon scales on half of his body flickered as he desperately stimulated the power of the dragon, continuously channeling his vitality into the golden bell shield. After all, the stronger his vitality, the stronger the golden bell shield. However, even if he increased his power of the dragon to 60% and fully released the endless cycle of reincarnation technique to stabilize the Great Void Cauldron's divine skill. However, the golden bell shield that enveloped him was also shrinking inside the hurricane, and it was beginning to change shape. Under such tremendous pressure, The dragon scales on Qin Hao's body were shattering and falling off piece by piece. In the blink of an eye, half of his body was covered in blood. At this rate, even if I increase my power of the dragon to the limit of what I can bear, I won't be able to withstand the hurricane at all. It's only a matter of time before the Golden Bell shield is crushed. Qin Hao gritted his teeth as sweat mixed with blood continuously flowed down his face. 10% of Emperor Yuan's strength was really not to be trifled with. With his current capital, he was far from being able to compete with Emperor Yuan. The fact that Qin Hao could hold on for so long without dying was enough for others to worship him. Unfortunately, if this earth-shattering hurricane was not destroyed, Qin Hao would not be able to resolve his crisis. With his strength, there was no way he could destroy the hurricane alone. At this moment, a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. Qin Hao detected that Zhou Wudao, that idiot, actually really did not leave the combat arena. Well, you're the one who insisted on not leaving, so don't blame me. In the next second, Qin Hao rushed toward Zhou Wudao's position while bearing the pressure of the hurricane. He must share the power of the hurricane with Zhou Wudao before the Golden Bell shield was crushed. In the outside world, Xiaogua and the others were extremely nervous. No one knew if Qin Hao was still alive or not. Even with Yi Long Yuan's cultivation, he was unable to penetrate the hurricane and explore the situation inside. But in the next second, everyone was surprised to see that the terrifying hurricane that connected heaven and earth swept toward Zhou Wudao for no reason. Chapter 1059. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Who was more terrifying? How could this be? Xiaogua was extremely shocked. It's Boss. Boss must have controlled the hurricane. Boss is fine. Yi Shuihan pointed in the direction of the battle arena and shouted in surprise. At the same time, his face was filled with horror. Qin Hao was actually strong enough to run while carrying a hurricane that was comparable to a first-stage primitive emperor. It simply made people have the urge to faint. Qin Hao, your performance this time really surprised me. But you are really too sinister. Duan Ziju was pleasantly surprised and couldn't help but find it funny. He guessed that Qin Hao must be unable to bear the pressure of the hurricane alone, so he led it to Zhou Wudao's position so that Zhou Wudao could share the burden. In order to protect himself, Zhou Wudao must have used all his strength to destroy the hurricane. After all, that unlucky guy had no chance to escape. That was indeed the case. At the same time, when Qin Hao attracted the hurricane, Zhou Wudao's expression changed drastically. Tens of thousands of alpacas howled in his heart. His movements were also incomparably agile. His entire body's vital qi blossomed as he tried to teleport down the stage. But the hurricane's power was far beyond his estimation. Zhou Wudao didn't have time to teleport away and was pulled into the hurricane from far away. At this moment, his wails and howls could be heard from the battle arena. Zhou Wudao came to Qin Hao's side as he wished. Water, shifting wind evasion. Pa! The Golden Bell protection was shattered. In order to seize this second, Qin Hao used all his strength to break through the limit and used the fifth step of the water-wind divine steps. He pierced through the hurricane's barrier and escaped. Just as he escaped from the hurricane, a piece of skin was torn off from his shoulder. Fortunately, Qin Hao finally succeeded. However, Zhou Wudao replaced Qin Hao's position and bore the pressure of the hurricane. The moment he was trapped, tragic screams spread throughout the Imperial Martial Plaza. Zhou Wudao's body was surrounded by raging gales. The pressure released by the hurricane, as well as the wind force spiraling within it, were like thousands of knives scraping his body, causing him to be in so much pain that he wished he was dead. In the blink of an eye, he was covered in blood, and even his bones were groaning from being unable to bear the burden. His physical strength was no match for Qin Hao's. In fact, he couldn't even last 1/10 of the time that Qin Hao could withstand the hurricane. If he did not destroy the hurricane, he would only end up dead. How could this be? Morong Zijuan was dumbfounded. He didn't expect that it would turn into the scene in front of him. He didn't do it on purpose, and his target wasn't Zhou Wudao. The pig with the surname Zhou had a scallion stuck in his nose. He refused to leave the arena and was unfortunately swept into my hurricane. If I can kill him as well, that would be a wonderful thing. Although Murong Zijuan was a little surprised, he was still satisfied with this outcome. Qin Hao. Oh, Qin Hao, you won't be able to escape this time. It seems like I have to thank Crown Prince Murong. My disciple, Wan Dao, rest in peace. Residence Master Chui smiled comfortably, and 2 drops of tears rolled down from his eyes. Tian Daluo was even happier than Residence Master Chui. He was so happy that he slapped his thigh and even wanted to sing. Qin Hao is finally dead. Even if I die, I will drag Zhou Wudao to the grave with me. Qin Hao's evil heart is unprecedented. I don't want you to pay for this. You can go to hell to accompany my son Bo Guang and my father Lin Shu. Tian Daluo laughed. The whirring sound of the hurricane was even better than the music played by fairies. He couldn't wait for the hurricane to be bigger and fiercer. Tian Daluo shouted in his heart, "Don't stop! Don't stop!" Suddenly, there was another change in the arena. Zhou Wudao was indeed a genius among geniuses. After he was trapped, he decisively revealed his strongest trump card to save his life. Under the guidance of his will, a mysterious, primitive, and blurry gas appeared behind him. As the wind was too strong, no one outside the arena could see what the gas was. However, they could clearly see that the mighty hurricane that connected the sky and the earth was actually shrinking under an inexplicable force. In the end, it was sucked into Zhou Wudao's stomach in one breath. In the blink of an eye, the hurricane disappeared without a trace, as if it had never appeared. The smiles of Residence Master Chui, Tian Daluo, and Murong Zijuan immediately froze on their faces. Zhou Wudao was also scared out of his wits. His face was covered in blood, and his eyes were wide open. His clothes were tattered, and his legs were trembling nonstop, as if he hadn't woken up from the power of the hurricane. It wasn't until a very long time later when Zhou Wudao felt that he was still alive. His face was still bleeding. Only then did he let out an excited and wild laugh. The power of a first-stage primitive emperor is only SOSO. Ha ha! His laughter was incomparably savage. It was filled with strong disdain for a first-stage primitive emperor. It also showed Zhou Wudao's unparalleled ambition. Rumble. Murong Zijuan felt as if he was struck by lightning. How is this possible? The hurricane was actually destroyed? Where's Qin Hao? Where did Qin Hao go? Almost all the sect masters and sect masters on the Imperial Tower stood up simultaneously and stretched their necks to look at the arena. The hurricane had disappeared, and only the wounded Zhou Wudao was left. However, they had lost track of Qin Hao. Could it be Qin Hao is dead? Someone asked. I'm behind you. Chapter 1060. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios, who's more terrifying. 2. Murong Zijuan felt as though his heart had been struck by a battering ram as he subconsciously turned around to take a look. Ha! A heavy slap landed on his face. The force of the slap was so strong that Murong Zijuan spat out 3 teeth and screamed as he was sent flying. This slap is for Duan Ziju. Qin Hao roared as he surged his yuan energy and followed up with a knee strike to Murong Zijuan's abdomen. Murong Zijuan's eyes bulged and his body bent over like a bow. This knee is my way of returning the favor to you for sending your lackeys to Western Liang to kill me. Qin Hao withdrew his knee strike and switched to his fists. His fists danced in the air and left a trail of afterimages as they landed on Murong Zijuan's face. After using 60% of his dragon power, the power of each of Qin Hao's punches was enough to kill an ordinary level 4 Yuan Venerate. At the moment, Murong Zijuan had been seriously injured by Qi Yuan. Although his cultivation base was higher than Qin Hao's, he couldn't use his Yuan energy, and Qi Yuan's black dragon aura remained in his body. To put it bluntly, his peak level 6 Yuan Venerate cultivation was just an empty shell. In an instant, he suffered over 1,000 punches from Qin Hao and was sent flying from the center of the arena to the edge. As the two of them passed each other, a long crack was left on the arena, making everyone tremble in fear. These punches are for Xiao Han. She's not a wager or a bargaining chip. She's a person. She's a woman that I, Qin Hao, will protect with my life for all eternity. Your love is merely plotting against the Daliao Empire and the Shao family's bloodline. You're plotting against your own ambitions. You don't deserve to stand here and participate in the Emperor Martial competition. You don't deserve to pollute Xiao Han with your twisted love. You don't deserve. Qin Hao vented his anger and power as he bellowed. He wasn't a narrow-minded person, let alone a selfish person. Qin Hao had no right to stop others from liking Xiao Han. On the contrary, the more geniuses that liked Xiao Han, the more outstanding Xiao Han was. However, Murong Zijuan's twisted love was blasphemy. It was something that Qin Hao would never allow to exist. Tears streamed down Xiao Han's face as she listened to Qin Hao's roar. She covered her mouth and nodded repeatedly. 5 years had passed, but Brother Qin Hao was still the same person with a sincere heart. Xiao was also deeply moved. Listening to Qin Hao's speech, he clenched his fists excitedly. He admitted it. He firmly believed that from this moment on, Qin Hao was a man worthy of entrusting his daughter to. 9 lions, Saint's soul, open for me. Blood continuously flowed out from Murong Zijuan's mouth. If he were to continue being beaten, he would fall off the stage and lose his qualifications. Even if he was heavily injured, he had to summon his source spirit to fight back. You don't have a chance. Explosive flame dragon blade. Qin Hao roared. With a flip of his right hand that had transformed into a dragon claw, the great void divine sword appeared in his hand. A destructive crimson flame rose on the emerald sword and spat out a 5-meter-long blade radiance. Following this, the red lotus fire chi emitted by Qin Hao became more and more turbulent. Combined with the power of the dragon, this move could definitely send Murong Zijuan, who only had half his life left, to the next world. You dare stop! Swish! Swish! One after another, powerful auras flew out of the Imperial Tower, bringing with them intense lights. They surged towards Qin Hao. Finally, the ministers and generals sent by Northern Yin could not hold themselves back any longer. Unfortunately, in the next second, they were ruthlessly slapped onto the Imperial Martial Square by a giant hand, causing billowing smoke to rise. Battle King Duan Zhanfei clenched his 5 fingers and pointed them toward the sky. These several dozens of Northern Yan's ministers and generals, who had reached the realm of revered and emperor, flew up into the sky while dancing with joy. Qin Hao, spare his life. Xiao Yi said nervously. If he killed Murong Zijuan, the consequences were not something that the current Daliao could bear. Of course, Qin Hao also understood this point. Originally, he wanted to cripple Murong Zijuan and send him to the Yin Emperor as a cripple. However, his father-in-law begged for mercy. Qin Hao's slash turned into a slap. The red lotus fire chi emitted from the blade coiled around Murong Zijuan's waist. With a forceful swing, he slapped Murong Zijuan off the stage. Murong Zijuan fell to the ground and let out a heart-wrenching scream. His waist was badly mutilated and emitted a thick barbecued smell. He quickly pressed his hand on it, but he could no longer feel his body. He knew that his waist was broken. Although he still had his cultivation, his body was crippled. In the future, he could only sit in a wheelchair like Duan Ziju. Qin Hao Murong Zijuan was so angry that blood rushed to his heart. He spat out a mouthful of blood toward the top of his head. If it weren't for his strong willpower, he would have fainted. Crown Prince! Crown Prince! Crown Prince! As the match came to an end, Duan Zhanfei retracted the pressure that was suppressing all the important ministers of Northern Yin. These generals and ministers fell to the ground like meat bags and hastily ran to Murong Zijuan's side, pouring bottle after bottle of wine into his mouth as if their lives depended on it. Qin Hao, you bastard. You crippled me. I won't forgive you. I swear that I won't let you off in this lifetime. Murong Zijuan couldn't even swallow the elixir. After swallowing it, he was immediately flushed out by the blood in his stomach. Expensive elixirs and blood were scattered all over the ground. The outcome has been decided. What's the use of Crown Prince Zijuan continuing to fight? I can only say that you and our princess are not fated. You should quickly go back and recuperate. At this moment, Gong's son Chongqing floated down from the imperial tower. In order to prevent another conflict between Murong Zijuan and Qin Hao, he landed on the stage. He first gave Qin Hao an appreciative glance before looking at Murong Zijuan with his cold eyes. Chapter 1061. Forcing a mad dog out, the Northern Yin generals were also condemning Qin Hao. They thought that it was unfair to Murong Zijuan that Qin Hao borrowed the power of others. Qin Hao shook his head and laughed coldly. There are no rules in the competition that forbid the contestants from using weapons and magic treasures. However, your Ling Tian ring doesn't store your own power, but your father's vital energy. Isn't that a violation of the rules? You're quibbling. Murong Zijuan was so angry that he couldn't reply. Furthermore, you don't have any objections to Zhou Wudao staying on the arena, right? He interfered in the competition. Even if you want to settle the score, you should settle it with Zhou Wudao. What does that have to do with me? Furthermore, I think that Zhou Wudao should be disqualified. Puff. Murong Zijuan spat out a mouthful of blood. It was indeed his idea to leave Zhou Wudao on the arena. All right, Murong Zijuan. A loss is a loss. Are you still a man? Why are you looking for excuses here? I was just trying to protect myself. I had no choice but to make a move. After all, you were the one who took out the Ling Tian ring to plot against me. Zhou Wudao regained his senses and hurriedly defended himself. He put the blame on Murong Zijuan. Puff. Murong Zijuan spat out another mouthful of blood. Good. I didn't expect to fall into the hands of Qin Hao when I was so close to the champion's throne. The heavens are really blind. However, you won't have it easy either. Murong Zijuan had no choice but to admit defeat. No matter how unwilling and regretful he was, he had to admit defeat. At this moment, he said to Zhou Wudao, "Brother Zhou, it's because I'm not as skilled as you. I have no hope of becoming the champion. If you help me get rid of Qin Hao, the Northern Yin Empire is willing to form an alliance with the great Zhou Empire for 100 years. We will live together and enjoy both good and bad times together. All fortifications will be removed between the two empires. Citizens can enter and leave freely. If the great Zhou Empire is in trouble, the Northern Yin Empire will help you." Are you serious? Zhou Wudao's mind shook and his face was filled with shock. Murong Zijuan threw out a heavy bomb that shocked everyone present. Everyone knew that the territory of the great Zhou Empire was long and narrow. It was like a crooked corridor that connected the north border and the east continent. Although the territory was not small, it was extremely difficult to defend and was often harassed by other countries, such as the east continent's Great Fuan Nation and some nomadic tribes. The Great Buddha Kingdom also had the secret help of Daqin, the #1 empire in the East Continent. In recent years, they've been brazenly plundering the resources of the Great Zhou dynasty. Because the Great Zhou dynasty was afraid of angering the Sunset Battle Emperor and Empress Ling Xian of Daqin, they could not do anything to the Kingdom of Florence. But once the Northern Yin and Great Zhou families formed an alliance, this expanding power was enough to make East Qin feel fear. If Zhou Wudao brought back the good news of the alliance, it would undoubtedly greatly enhance his status in the country. I swear in the name of the Crown Prince, in the name of the next Emperor of Yin, that I am willing to form an alliance with the Great Zhou dynasty in exchange for Qin Hao's head. Murong Zijuan was infuriated. He knew that the Great Zhou Empire was a stinking puddle, but he was still willing to stick his foot in. Good, Zhou Wudao shouted, and immediately nodded his head in agreement. He quickly cut open his palm and threw a strand of blood in the direction of Murong Zijuan. Brother Zijuan, let us swear in the heavenly pact to witness the 100 years of friendship between the Northern Yin and the Great Zhou dynasty. We will share weal and woe, and be as close as lips and teeth. The heavenly pact was a holy pact that was formed under the witness of the heavenly way. Those who violated it would have their souls destroyed. Crown Prince, please reconsider. You can't form an alliance with the great Zhou dynasty. That will anger the Sunset Battle Emperor and Empress Ling Xian. I hope the Crown Prince will discuss with the Emperor of Yin and make a decision. I will decide. All of you, get out of my way. Murong Zijuan was so angry that his eyes almost popped out. He did not care about the minister's dissuasion and threw a strand of blood into the air, mixing with Zhou Wudao's blood. At this moment, the two of them were chanting the heavenly pact incantation together. In midair, the blood that had fused together emitted a sacred purple-gold light. It rose into the sky at an unbelievable speed and disappeared from everyone's sight. At this moment, an earth-shattering muffled thunder reverberated in the sky above Diwu Square. It was vast and sacred, and the sound of thunder quickly spread across the entire continent. It represented the heavenly way's acknowledgement of the agreement between the two parties and announced it to the entire divine, desolate martial world. Ha ha, brother, from this moment on, you're my blood brother. The people of Northern Yin will also be the people that the great Zhou dynasty will protect. As promised, I will take Qin Hao's head. Zhou Wudao laughed heartily. Hearing his loud laughter, regardless of whether it was Xiao, Yi, the generals of Northern Qi, or the representatives of the various countries of the southern region, and some of the representatives of Dongzhou, their expressions were extremely grave. With the heavenly pact, the great Zhou dynasty and Northern Yin were completely tied together. If Northern Yin was in trouble, the attacker would be cruelly punished by the great Zhou dynasty. If the great Zhou dynasty was in trouble, Northern Yin would also send troops to the border and kill the enemies of the great Zhou dynasty at all costs. No one dared to break the heavenly pact. Otherwise, the heavenly way would destroy all the members of the royal family, including their branches and close relatives. In short, as long as it was related to the blood of Zhou Wudao and Murong Zijuan, Emperor Yuan would not be able to escape the bombardment of the heavenly way. Chapter 1062. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation at the peak now. It's just a treaty. It's not worth mentioning. Although the Zhanyu sect doesn't have many subjects, Emperor Xiao should know the strength of our sect and the cultivation of our palace emperor. In fact, we're also willing to make a treaty with Daliao. Of course, you have to betroth Princess Jingyue to our sect's disciple. Mansion Master Cui smiled sinisterly. As soon as the two of them spoke, many forces in the southern mountain range and important figures from the east continent also spoke at the same time. They were willing to make a treaty with Daliao. If it were anyone else, they would think that these impatient voices were better than heavenly music. However, when Xiao Yi heard them, he felt that they were disgusting flies. They were so noisy that his head was about to explode. That's enough. My daughter is not a bargaining chip, nor is she a tool to form an alliance with others. She will walk her own path. She will choose her own happiness. The competition is not over yet. Gongsun Changxing announced the next round. Xiao Yi's face tightened impatiently. He shouted in a deep voice. His Emperor stage aura suppressed everyone and made them quiet down. I have brother Qin Hao and a father who loves me as much as Qin Hao. This is the greatest happiness in my life. Seeing Xiao Yi resisting everyone's attempts to take advantage of the situation, Xiao Han was moved to tears. The next round, Qin Hao of Western Liang versus Zhou Wudao of the East Continent. After this battle, the winner will be qualified to challenge the strongest person in the Imperial Martial Competition and fight for the championship. The winner will be revealed soon. Who will be the one and only prince consort of Daliao? Gongsun Changxing waved the horsetail whisk in his hand and flew to the Imperial Tower. Brother Zhou, please. Murong Zijuan's eyes were full of murderous intent. He clenched his fists tightly. Brother, don't worry. Zhou Wudao patted his chest and promised. It was just a head. It was a piece of cake. Also, I don't mind telling Brother Zhou an earth-shattering secret. You have to kill Qin Hao and defeat the mysterious strongest person in the Imperial Martial Competition. Only then can you enjoy this secret treatment. In short, the benefits it brings to you are enormous and endless. Murong Zijuan licked his lips and looked greedily at Xiaohan. His gaze was fixed on the crescent jade pendant on her jade neck. According to Murong Zijuan's many years of secret investigation, the jade pendant left behind by the crown princess after her death was very likely to contain the technique that allowed Emperor Yuan to step into the divine realm. In reality, the reason why Murong Zijuan and Qi Yuan did not hesitate to risk their lives in battle was precisely for this pendant. Oh, I'm looking forward to it. Now watch how I take Qin Hao's head. As far as I was concerned, making Qin Hao's dog head fly up from his neck was just a simple matter of using my eyes. Isn't that right, bastard Qin? Zhou Wudao's tone suddenly became incomparably cold. Two sharp rays of light shot out from his pupils. With a flash, they shot into Qin Hao's eyes. When the two rays of light appeared, Xianyuan Wuji was so scared that his face turned pale as he knelt down on the ground in a flurried manner with his eyes tightly closed. He was still in the shadow left by Zhou Wudao. Big brother, be careful. Boss, watch out. Don't look into his eyes. Young master. At this moment, Xiaogua, Chen Wanqin, and Xing'er were all extremely nervous. After all, Zhou Wudao's eyes must be extremely fierce since he could scare Xianyuan Wuji, who was also a supreme genius like him like a wild dog. Nobody knew what terrifying ability he had. Pitifully, it was already too late. This ray of light drilled into Qin Hao's pupils rapidly like a viper. In an instant, Qin Hao's body quivered. Like Xianyuan Wuji, a lot of blood flew out of his mouth corners. Even half of the dragon scales on his body shattered and fell to the ground. This strike directly crushed Qin Hao's dragon form. Oh, you're just a blind man. How could you not kowtow to me? That's out of my expectation. Zhou Wudao slightly frowned. After being hit, Xianyuan Wuji immediately knelt down and surrendered to Zhou Wudao. However, Qin Hao didn't do that. Although Qin Hao seemed to be heavily injured, he was still standing. This guy's surname, Qin's spiritual level, is far above Xianyuan Wuji's. Zhou Wudao muttered to himself as he prepared to release another soul attack. Suddenly, "Pah!" The sound of glass breaking suddenly spread from Qin Hao's body. The sound was so crisp that even the millions of people in the silent Imperial Martial Square could hear it clearly. In the next second, under Zhou Wudao's horrified expression, two rays of light flashed out of Qin Hao's pupils. The difference was that these two rays of light were extremely scarlet and instantly disappeared into Zhou Wudao's eyes. Zhou Wudao felt a surge of violent energy that could topple the mountains and overturn the seas, ruthlessly smashing into his brain. It was simply enough to tear his brain apart. He couldn't bear it. With a wah sound, he vomited a mouthful of hot blood and staggered back 7 or 8 steps. Blind? Which eye of yours told you that I'm blind? When everyone was confused about the situation, Qin Hao's laughter sounded from the arena. At this moment, Qin Hao put away his red lotus fiery pupils and turned into a normal person. However, his eyes were no longer gray and hazy. Instead, they had become bright and clear. The light in his eyes was even more resplendent than the stars and deeper than the abyss. The aura he contained was even more vast and boundless than the sea, causing one to be unable to guess its end. All of this was thanks to Zhou Wudao's overconfident soul attack. That attack didn't break Qin Hao's will, but the filth that covered his eyes when everything in the world repaired his eyes. This layer of filth was so solid that Qin Hao couldn't remove it himself for fear of damaging his eyes. He could only wait for it to fade away slowly. As Zhou Wudao unleashed a spiritual shock without holding back, it also helped Qin Hao shatter this layer of filth, allowing him to completely recover his vision. Chapter 1063. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations, the #1 martialist of the Imperial Martial Palace. Qin Hao's eyes seemed to have regained their former vigor. Dan Xian stood up excitedly. Could be that Big Brother is right. His vision has recovered after being stimulated by Zhou Wudao. Xiaogua's words delighted everyone. Furthermore, based on the effect of Big Brother's counterattack, his ocular technique isn't inferior to his opponent's. Yi Shuihen's words delighted everyone. Qin Hao's ocular technique also possessed the ability to transform physical attacks after experiencing the calamity of Blue River Mountain. Furthermore, everyone knew that his ocular technique could also release illusions like the illusory eye. However, what really shocked everyone was Zhou Wudao's voice. Zhou Wudao steadied his staggering figure, and with an aghast expression, he faced Qin Hao and said, "Your spiritual grade is actually not the slightest bit weaker than mine, and has also reached the 18th level." Boom! As soon as he said this, the millions of spectators felt their hearts skip a beat. A level 18 mind attribute was enough to make everyone present, except for Xiao, Yi, and Duan Zhanfei, feel ashamed. Mind grade was very important to martialists, as it affected their cultivation speed. The higher their mind power, the faster their cultivation speed. A level 18 mind attribute could be several times faster than others, or even 10 times faster. Other people would need 100 years to become a Yuan Venerate, but Qin Hao might only need 10 years to succeed. Even in the East Continent, where geniuses were as common as clouds, Qin Hao's mind grade was definitely among the upper echelons. His potential was really limitless. He's actually so strong. How despicable. Murong Zijuan was angry and resentful. He was even more determined to get rid of Qin Hao. No wonder he could withstand Zhou Wudao's God's gaze. Xinyuan Wuji blushed with shame. Even though they hadn't exchanged blows, Qin Hao had already defeated him in terms of mind grade. My current state is at its peak. Let's fight to our heart's content. Qin Hao smiled confidently as the great void sword emitted an even more dazzling emerald glow. The pinnacle? Zhou Wudao looked at Qin Hao, whose dragon scales were broken and whose white clothes were dyed red with blood. At first, he was slightly absent-minded, but then he held his stomach and laughed. "Haha, Qin Hao, you are not joking, right? My full-powered soul attack has already destroyed your dual soul body. How dare you boast that you're in your peak condition? In fact, you're no different from a heavily injured Murong Zijuan. You're just an empty shell. Who are you trying to scare?" In Zhou Wudao's opinion, Qin Hao was following in Murong Zijuan's footsteps. With a severely injured body, it would be difficult for him to exert his full strength. An empty shell that's strong in appearance, but weak in reality. Qin Hao looked at the bloodstains on his body and shook his head. He activated his third source spirit, the nether cleansing water. With the infusion of his spirit qi, a crystal-clear light came from the bottom of his feet. With a flash of the water, the bloodstains were swept away and the broken dragon scales quickly grew back. The dragon scales were even more dazzling than before. Now you're not just strong on the outside, but weak on the inside. Qin Hao also smiled faintly as he brandished his sword a few times. Kacha! A thunderbolt exploded in Zhou Wudao's mind. He opened his eyes wide. How is this possible? Don't tell me you have a third source spirit. It's a triple soul body. Not only Zhou Wudao, but the other contestants who were still in the Imperial Martial Plaza also had the urge to faint. It was already as difficult as ascending to heaven for others to obtain a source spirit. Qin Hao, on the other hand, had 3 souls in one body, and his spirit level had reached level 18. Every single one of his ancestors was enough to make people vomit blood with jealousy. You talk too much nonsense. Leave the shock to go to hell, Jian Baihong. Qin Hao was too lazy to waste his breath. Anyway, he was already used to people being shocked by him. Then the great void divine sword swept out a sword shadow. The sword shadow separated and split in the middle, turning into hundreds of sharp lights that attacked Zhou Wudao. Zhou Wudao's reaction was very fast. He no longer doubted that Qin Hao had indeed reached his peak state. With a flip of his palm, he held an extremely high-quality golden sword. The golden sword pierced forward as he shouted, "Shadow, shattering teeth." Swish, 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 swish. A large number of sharp lights, like poisonous thorns, burst out from the golden sword. They were so dense that they were no less than Jian Baihong's sword chi. Immediately, these sharp lights intertwined with Jian Baihong's flying sword. They shuttled back and forth and shattered each other. The sound of clanking was incessant. Balls of broken light spots flashed in the arena, dazzling the eyes of the spectators. When the sword chi and sword light from both sides disappeared at the same time, a few small wounds appeared on Zhou Wudao's body. A few pieces of Qin Hao's dragon scales were also broken. At this moment, neither of them spoke. They clenched the swords in their hands and stared at each other quietly. Suddenly, they spread out their giant wings at the same time. As if they had agreed beforehand, they turned into two violent forces and soared into the sky together. As they flew, the sword shadows of both sides intertwined again. There was a violent sound of iron striking in the sky. Judging from the sound, each strike they made was as heavy as 10 million pounds. Awesome, awesome. I didn't make this trip in vain. I can't believe I met a monster with 3 souls in one body. Moreover, your spiritual level is on par with mine. You are qualified to die in my hands. You know, killing 100 good-for-nothings like Xianyuan Wuji is not as satisfying as killing you. Qin Hao, Zhou Wudao, was extremely crazy. The level of his swordsmanship was also quite high. The sword chi he released was very powerful. If Qin Hao was not proficient in swordsmanship, he would not have been able to hold on for more than 3 rounds. Even Qin Hao felt the pressure. What a good lad from the Qin clan. 3 souls in one body and a mental strength of a grade 18 martial artist. No wonder his ability to challenge those of a higher cultivation realm is so ridiculous. He was even able to kill a cultivator who was 1 heavenly cycle realm above him with a flip of his hand. Xiao Yi, who was watching the battle, nodded appreciatively. As long as Qin Hao could survive this battle, he would be Daliao's son-in-law. Of course, the premise was that he had to defeat the strongest person in Emperor's martial arts. Perhaps for others, the chances of defeating the strongest person in Emperor's martial arts were very slim. It was no exaggeration to say that Zhou Wudao did not have that ability. But for Qin Hao, it might be very easy. Chapter 1064. Translator, Nioibo Studio Editor. Nioibo Studio Brothers' primordial spirit, however, Xiao Yi also knew that it would not be easy for Qin Hao to defeat Zhou Wudao. Zhou Wudao had held back a lot. At least he had not used his primordial spirit yet. Qin family boy, you have to hold on. Xiao Yi could not help but clench his fists. High up in the sky, the two of them were getting more and more engrossed in their fight, as if their strength was limitless. Whether it was Qin Hao or Zhou Wudao, it was rare for them to meet a worthy opponent. It was not easy to meet an opponent who could withstand their strength, so they were giving it their all at this moment. Such a high-intensity collision continued for around an hour. Only when Qin Hao showed a trace of fatigue did it stop. Zhou Wudao let out a loud roar and flapped his pitch-black origin wings to quickly pull his figure up. Holding the sword with both hands, he heavily chopped down on Qin Hao's head. That surging sword chi suddenly expanded to 100 meters in size, magnificent and spectacular. Even if Qin Hao quickly increased the strength of his dragon force to 70%, reaching the state when Lan Chuanshan was in danger, and used the Great Void divine sword to block his opponent's golden sword, he could not withstand this attack. He was pressed down from the sky by Zhou Wudao, crashing heavily into the battle arena with a boom. The battle arena could no longer withstand the strength of the two, and it collapsed. Qin Hao and Zhou Wudao's figures were submerged in at the same time. At this moment, the broken stones were thrown into the sky and fell in all directions. Brother Qin Hao, Xiao Han stood in the Imperial Tower, looking extremely nervous. It was obvious that Qin Hao was at a disadvantage. Bear with it, you have to trust him. If we break the rules now, all our efforts will be in vain. Xiao Yi held his daughter's wrist tightly, afraid that she would do something unwise. Kair also anxiously circled around Xiao Han. clenching her fists and stomping her feet. 75% dragon force. Open for me. After Qin Hao was pressed into the battle arena, he did not stop. He penetrated through the bottom layer, and the two of them sank down 1,000 feet. At this moment, he was thoroughly suppressed by Zhou Wudao. As he increased his dragon power once again, the dragon soul in his body roared. An even more tyrannical power filled every single one of Qin Hao's meridians. He forcefully increased his strength, and the red lotus fire gushed out from the soles of his feet. He broke through the disadvantage in one fell swoop and pushed Zhou Wudao back to the ground. Bang bang. Two sounds. The two figures reappeared in the crowd's field of vision from the center of the broken arena. However, the colossal arena with a radius of 1,000 meters had sunk down to the same height as the ground. Moreover, the smooth surface of the arena had become bumpy and bumpy. Huge rocks were missing one after another. It was a terrible sight to behold. Whoosh, whoosh. Back on the stage, the two of them stood 10 meters apart from each other. They quickly took a few breaths to calm themselves down. Zhou Wudao's entire body was drenched in sweat. The huge pitch-black primordial wings on his back were faintly discernible, and there were many more wounds on his body. However, these sword wounds were not enough to affect him. In comparison, Qin Hao was a little worse off. More than half of the dragon scales covering his body were damaged, and there was a wound on his forehead. Fresh blood flowed nonstop, flowing into one of his eyes, blurring his vision. Moreover, on the shoulder of his transformed dragon arm, there was also an extremely deep scar. This sword wound affected the flexibility of Qin Hao's arm. Not bad. You've held on for so long in my hands. Qin Hao's strength is enough to rank in the top 5 of the great Zhou Empire. Moreover, I suspect that you can even defeat the fourth person. Indeed, not bad. Zhou Wudao praised. Then he said, but the current me is only in a normal state, and I haven't released my own primordial spirit. Even if you have the power of 3 primordial spirits, in order to resist my powerful attack, you must have exhausted it to the limit. Moreover, your 3rd primordial spirit seems to be unable to heal the injuries on your body. Zhou Wudao's sharp eyes flickered. His analysis was very accurate. Previously, in order to make up for the dragon transformation that was defeated by the other party's gaze, Qin Hao's nether-purifying water element in his body was almost completely exhausted. However, this was necessary. Only by completely relaxing himself and letting down all his defenses would he be able to recover his vision through Zhou Wudao's spirit shock. At the moment, the little remaining nether-purifying water element was indeed unable to restore his state, let alone heal the sword wound. This person is at least a dual-soul martialist. Even in his normal state, he has a terrifying strength comparable to a level 8 Yuan Venerate. If he were to release the power of his primordial spirit, his combat strength would be comparable to a level 1 Yuan Venerate. How terrifying! For the first time, Qin Hao felt that he had encountered a very thorny opponent. He had activated 75% of his dragon power, which was the limit of his limit, and he had the support of the indestructible Samsara art. However, he still hadn't gained the slightest advantage. The next step would be to consider taking out the 5-element sword. However, Qin Hao hadn't considered the fact that he had killed Lu Chou, who was a level 6 Yuan Venerate, when he was still a level 6 Yuan Venerate. This action of crossing one heavenly cycle realm was actually more monstrous than Zhou Wudao's. At the moment, there was no time to think too much. Zhou Wudao was about to use his ultimate move. Obviously, Zhou Wudao could also see that if he didn't reveal his primordial spirit and use his innate ability, he wouldn't be able to defeat Qin Hao in his normal state. Kid, are you ready? I'm going to release my primordial spirit. Zhou Wudao's expression suddenly turned grave as gray smoke gradually appeared around his body. At the same time, a big crow that was 3 times the size of an ordinary crow emerged from the gray smoke and let out a piercing caw. With a whoosh, it shot towards Qin Hao's chest like an arrow. Big brother, be careful! Saiowa shouted anxiously. Yishuehan and the others were extremely nervous. Red Lotus bursting flame blade. Chapter 1065. Heaven defying five elements, sword Hong Long. With an explosive sound, Qin Hao's flame blade was shattered and a broken crow flew out of the flames. This sword actually couldn't block it, but the crow was also heavily injured. It was on the verge of collapsing, and it disappeared in the next second. That's all. Qin Hao let out a sigh of relief. Zhou Wudao's source spirit wasn't as strong as he imagined. Is that so? Zhou Wudao's lips curled. He slowly raised his hand, and the gray smoke condensed another large crow. 10, 20, endless. If one isn't enough, then 10, 100. Let's see how long you can last. Go for me. Zhou Wudao's palm suddenly fell down, and the crows circling above his head charged at Qin Hao like a swarm of locusts. Qin Hao's expression suddenly changed. The Red Lotus exploding flame blade was already hard to destroy, but the other side had sent over 100 of them. Flame Dragon revolving sky slash. Without any hesitation, Qin Hao put away the great void sword. He raised his hands above his head and used his strongest move. His palms gathered a boundless red lotus flame energy, and a dragon-shaped fireball appeared above his head. It turned into a 100-meter wide fireball that stood in the air. When the crows filled the sky, Qin Hao immediately threw the fireball to the other side. Roar! The dragon roared. The fireball exploded and the flames spread, killing around 10 crows. After it exploded, a domineering flame dragon descended from the sky. It intertwined with the crows, and both sides began to fight. But there were too many crows. Gradually, the flames on the flame dragon were extinguished, and the dragon's body was torn to pieces. Big brother, it's dangerous. Dodge! Xiaogua and Yishuehan desperately roared. Although the flame dragon had torn apart half of the crows, there were still 50 crows that charged at Qin Hao. In the blink of an eye, they had surrounded him. With your heavy injuries, if you can safely escape from my source spirit crows, I'll eat shit. Zhou Wudao proudly said with his hands behind his back. His words were like a calming pill to Murong Zijuan. Ha ha, Qin Hao is done for. He's done for. How delightful. Murong Zijuan pounded his chest with his fists as if he had gone mad. Far away in the spectator stands, Zhou Wuning was also jumping around excitedly. He's finally dead. Qin Hao is finally dead. As expected of my clan's genius, as expected of my big brother Wudao. This is so satisfying. Qin Hao, that little bastard, really makes people worry. It's really too hard to die. However, this time, there is no way for him to survive. Manor Head Shui wiped the sweat off his forehead, firmly believing that Qin Hai would definitely die. Tian Daoyuo thought so too. He looked at his pathetic limp leg. But all of a sudden, the remaining crows covered Qin Hao's body, almost wrapping him into a black ball. However, there were 5 streaks of sword light that forcefully broke the black ball apart. One of the streaks of sword light that carried flames soared to the sky. With a whoosh, it rolled up a tongue of flame and pierced toward Zhou Wudao. Zhou Wudao's complexion was horrified for a moment. He also reacted quickly and used the golden sword to block. Clang! There was a heavy sound of a heavy blow. The streaks of sword light that carried flames pierced the back of the golden sword and forced it to curve into a crescent arc. The force of the impact was so strong that Zhou Wudao's legs slid backward. He could not withstand it all. In the blink of an eye, he slid 1,000 meters away and was about to fall off the stage. What a powerful sword force! Panic appeared on Zhou Wudao's face for the first time. He gritted his teeth and frantically increased his yuan qi. Before he fell off the stage, he flapped his wings and flew into the sky to resolve the awkward situation. At the same time, the spot where Qin Hao was standing let out a loud bang. 4 streaks of sword light shot out and forcefully pulverized the crows. Then, they circled around Qin Hao's body like 4 divine swords, protecting him. Among the 4 swords, one was surrounded by lightning. One was glowing with water. One was glowing with a green halo. The last one was emitting a dazzling golden radiance. This streak of sword chi that carried a dazzling golden radiance was clearly more powerful than the other 4 streaks of sword chi. It was the 5 elements magical sword that the young, crouching dragon and phoenix had painstakingly created. When the 5 elements magical sword appeared, Qin Hao immediately made a sword sign to control the direction of the flying swords. They pierced toward Zhou Wudao one after another. Come and have a taste of the power of 5 mid-tier honorable weapons. This thing is prepared for you, Qin Hao said ruthlessly. His words scared Zhou Wudao so much that he almost fell from the sky. 5 mid-tier honorable weapons. Oh my god, was Qin Hao a bandit? What did he rob from? To be honest, the power of 1 honorable weapon was not enough to attract Zhou Wudao's attention. After all, the golden sword in his hand was also mid-tier. This did not include the green phoenix demon subduing pole that he had lost at Sayogwa. However, if the 5 honorable weapons were added together, it was enough to cause Zhou Wudao a lot of trouble. Moreover, the 5 elements magical sword was forged with the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. It was engraved with emperor-level inscriptions. Just the power of the inscriptions alone was enough to kill Zhou Wudao. Absorb the soul into the body. As the 5 elements magical sword flew over, Zhou Wudao tested the power of one of them. He knew that it was abnormally fierce, and he had to merge it with the crow's soul to strengthen his body. In the next moment, the soul entered his body, and his appearance changed greatly. First of all, the wings on his back were no longer in a gaseous state. Instead, they had condensed into a substance like flesh and blood. Then, his body was covered with a layer of black feathers, just like Qin Hao's dragon scales. The scales were glowing, proving that his defense had been greatly improved. More importantly, his flying skills and speed had become stronger and faster. Sky-breaking sword. With a roar, Zhou Wudao, whose overall strength had increased, slashed down with the golden sword to create a 100-meter long sword radiance. Chapter 1066. Translator, Transin Editor. Transin awakening the ultimate power like a beam of light. It smashed forward. 5 elements ultimate strike. Qin Hao's will firmly covered the 5 flying swords, and his mental power frantically poured into them. Under his control, the 5 flying swords emitted a dazzling radiance. They formed a straight line and forcibly tore a crack in the light beam that was smashing down. Along the crack, they resisted Zhou Wudao's pressure and constantly approached him. Gradually, the first flaming sword was the first to be unable to withstand the pressure. The flames on the sword body suddenly burst, and it was shaken until it was incomparably bent, like a twisted fried dough twist. It broke away from the formation and flew to one side. At this time, the remaining 4 flying swords were still 400 meters away from Zhou Wudao. Following closely was the water sword. The water sword also followed in the footsteps of the flaming sword. However, after it was shaken away, the remaining 3 flying swords were less than 300 meters away from Zhou Wudao. This also made Zhou Wudao's expression become more and more frightened. He desperately poured his energy into the sword to stop the remaining 3 flying swords from moving forward. Under the powerful pressure, the lightning sword and wooden sword were shaken away one after another, and their bodies were damaged. Wulong and Feng Chu, who were watching the battle from the royal tower, hugged their heads and cried with heartache. At present, only the last metal attribute flying sword with the strongest impact was still tenaciously holding on, and it had successfully approached Zhou Wudao. Damn it! Zhou Wudao was horrified. The tip of the metal attribute flying sword had already collided with the golden sword in his hand. In an instant, a powerful force came, shaking Zhou Wudao's hands until they were numb. Moreover, the strange thing was that Zhou Wudao's golden sword was cracking inch by inch under the opponent's pressure. Zhou Wudao, it's time for you to eat shit. Qin Hao roared. His hands formed a sword sign, and his arms suddenly pierced above his head. The metal attribute flying sword seemed to have been injected with chicken blood. It was as if it was crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. It completely shattered Zhou Wudao's weapon, and in an instant, it was about to sink into his chest. Cursed wings protection. Zhou Wudao screamed shrilly. In this moment of crisis, he desperately wrapped his wings around his body in a futile attempt to resist. Unfortunately, his soul wings were not enough to resist this sword. The metallic flying sword pierced through Zhou Wudao's wings without any hindrance and entered his chest, bringing along a stream of blood as it came out from his back. Along the way, Zhou Wudao's protective feathers were completely useless. This was the first time he had suffered such a serious injury in the Monarch martial competition. His primordial spirit immediately dissipated and turned into a puff of black smoke, falling at Qin Hao's feet. Qin Hao also glanced at the flame sword, water sword, lightning sword, and wooden sword scattered on the battle arena with a pained expression. The 4 flying swords were badly damaged, especially the leading flaming sword. It was under the greatest pressure and was twisted into a twisted shape. Its inscriptions were also damaged, and it was quite difficult to repair. However, Qin Hao still had a metal attribute flying sword that was still in good condition. Zhou Wudao's chest was pierced by the sword. Even if he managed to avoid the fate of having his heart crushed, according to his current state, he obviously wouldn't be able to withstand the attack of the metallic flying sword. You lost. Qin Hao looked at Zhou Wudao coldly. The tip of the metal attribute flying sword was pressed against Zhou Wudao's skull, ready to pierce through it at any time. Boom! The entire Monarch martial square shook like thunder. They looked at the pride of the East Continent, who was prostrating at Qin Hao's feet in disbelief. How strong Zhou Wudao's strength was, it was plain for all to see. Putting everything else aside, just one look from him was enough to make Xianyuan Wuji, who could easily injure Duan Ziju, kneel. Furthermore, he had destroyed the hurricane that Murong Zijuan had released, which was comparable to a Stage 1 Yuan Monarch. Such a battle record could be considered the number 1 in the Monarch martial competition. Of course, that was because the true number 1 person on the Monarch martial competition list hadn't appeared yet. However, no one had expected that Qin Hao, who was only a Stage 8 Yuan Monarch, could actually defeat Zhou Wudao. This was simply too shocking. Impossible. How could this be? Murong Zijuan instantly lost all his strength. This is a ruthless slap to my old face. Cui Fuchu clenched his fists in humiliation once again. We definitely can't let Qin Hao live. Otherwise, the Zhanyuan mansion will have a fatal natural enemy. Tian Daluo could clearly feel that his lame leg was starting to hurt again. However, compared to Murong Zijuan's loss of self-control, Cui Fuchu's anger, and Tian Daluo's nervousness, Cui Fuchu's infuriated expression was more sinister. Xianyuan Wuji uttered a gloomy laughter as he muttered, Qin Hao is screwed. Qin Hao is completely screwed. He has completely infuriated Zhou Wudao. No, I have to stay far away from the gladiator. Xianyuan Wuji seemed to know that an unprecedented danger was about to happen. He hurriedly ran away and retreated outside the defensive circle of the Imperial Army. It would be safer to stand behind the Imperial Army. On the other hand, Zhou Wudao's brother, Zhou Wuning, was also running away. As he ran, a look of horror flashed across his face. He knew very well what Zhou Wudao was going to do next. You're very strong. Apart from my clan's eldest prince Zhou Wutian, you're the first among all the geniuses of the East Continent to fight with me. You didn't disappoint me. You didn't disappoint me. The word disappoint was squeezed out from Zhou Wudao's clenched teeth. Suddenly, a surge of wild energy spread out from Zhou Wudao's body. Clang! This force easily deflected the metal element flying sword that was close to his head. With a squelch, it brushed past the shoulders of a few Imperial guards and nailed into the city wall below the royal tower. Chapter 1067. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations Ancient Ferocious Beasts Clatter. The heavy armors of the 7 or 8 Imperial Guards, which were as thick as 2 fingers and their helmets, were smashed into pieces, revealing their horrified faces. That metal attribute flying sword just now had merely flown past them. The black crystal heavy armors, which cost 1.5 million high-grade Xian crystals each, were known as Daliao's newest and most elite equipment, but they were smashed into pieces at the same time. How terrifying was Zhou Wudao's strength after smashing the flying sword away. What an amazing vital qi. The Imperial Guards, whose faces were distorted due to fear, couldn't help but exclaim. Young Phoenix of the Imperial Tower fainted directly because the royal grade inscriptions he carved on the flying sword of the metal element were completely shattered. The 5 middle-grade venerable weapons, which had the potential to evolve into royal-grade divine soldier, couldn't even withstand a single blow from Zhou Wudao. It seems that something exciting is about to happen. Mansion Master Cui, who was vexed, said with surprise in his eyes. Tian Daiyuo and Murong Zijuan looked at Zhou Wudao at the same time. Zhou Wudao, who was crawling at Qin Hao's feet, slowly stood up again. His eyes became incomparably cold, and his hair moved without any wind. It was as if the tentacles of an octopus were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws at the back of his head. The gray smoke that surrounded his body was also replaced by a dense black smoke. After the black smoke dispersed, an ancient and desolate aura was awakened on Zhou Wudao's body. This aura made Qin Hao's heart tremble violently, and his face turned pale with fright. He knew that Zhou Wudao had opened his second natal original spirit. Could this aura belong to one of the top 10 beasts on the beast soul list? Qin Hao certainly knew which chaotic beast the aura of Zhou Wudao's natal original spirit belonged to. However, he still couldn't believe it because it was too rare. Haha, you've also seen the power of my second natal original spirit, right? I, Zhou Wudao, am recognized as the second most powerful genius in the Great Zhou Empire. I, Zhou Wudao, deserve my reputation. And why do you think Xianyuan Wuji knelt down and surrendered to me? Why is he afraid of falling to the ground? Because he sensed my irresistible power in advance. That's why he became so terrified. Originally, I was very reluctant to use this power. Once I use it, it will be difficult for me to control it. If I'm not careful, it will cause terrible trauma and harm to the audience in Diwu Square. Also, when I use it, my entire appearance will look very evil, which will affect Princess Jingyue's image. I originally thought that a mere imperial martial competition was not worthy of my attention, but I miscalculated. You, Qin Hao, forced me to use it. So, in order to repay you, feel the existence of the apocalypse. Zhou Wudao let out a loud roar and suddenly raised his palms above his head. The billowing black smoke on his body became even more intense. What followed was the roar of a giant beast. Behind him, a heaven-shaking and earth-shattering phantom of an ancient ferocious beast appeared. It's really him, 8th on the beast soul list, Tao Tai. Qin Hao was so shocked that he retreated rapidly. At this moment, behind Zhou Wudao, a monster with the body of a goat, the face of a human, the eyes under its armpits, the teeth of a tiger, and the claws of a dragon, a big head and a big mouth raised its front legs high and roared at the entire Diwu Square. The sound waves of the roar were deafening, and countless stone slabs were sent flying. The face of this monster was filled with greed and savagery. Undoubtedly, it was one of the 9 sons of the dragon god. It lived by devouring and was said to be an ancient ferocious beast, Tao Tai. Oh my god, help! Lord Martial Emperor, save me. At this moment, the entire Diwu Square was filled with wails. As soon as the origin soul of the ancient Tao Tai appeared, as Zhou Wudao had said, its primitive power was not something that he could control at present. Tao Tai was greedy by nature. It immediately opened its huge mouth and madly sucked at the millions of people. In an instant, the broken fighting ring and the huge stones flew into its mouth, together with the tiles that had been sent flying. Even the people in John Woo, who were thousands of meters away, could not control their legs, and slipped and fell to the ground involuntarily. Their bodies flew into Tao Ye's huge mouth. The scenes of life and death made people tremble with fear. The sound of children calling for their children and crying for their parents could be heard everywhere. The scene fell into great turmoil. Even the Imperial guards guarding the fighting ring were about to lose control and slip into Tao Ye's mouth one by one. It's just a remnant soul. Defend the formation. Xiao Yi did not bother to make a move and roared. Roar! A total of 100,000 Imperial guards moved at the same time. Balls of vigorous vitality light flickered around their bodies. The cultivation of each group was not lower than a profound sage. More than half of them were heaven sages, and about 1,000 of them were Yuan kings. The 10 commanders leading them were even half-step Yuan sovereigns. With the power of 100,000 people, a huge light shield descended from the sky and covered the fighting ring, isolating Tao Ye's sucking power. The people and low-level warriors who were desperately flying or sliding on the ground immediately stopped in their tracks. They were momentarily stunned and were scared out of their wits. They cried and ran out of the Di-Wu square with their hands covering their heads. However, this light shield also restricted Qin Hao. Brother Qin Hao, it's dangerous. Xiao Han's feet shook the Imperial Tower as he tried to fly into the light shield. Chapter 1068. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. If you don't give up, you win. But that's an ancient, ferocious beast. With Big Brother Qin Hao's current cultivation base, it's difficult for him to... Do you want his bloody battle to go down the drain? He fought so hard from the qualifying round until now. Who did he do it for? It's for you. Xiao Yi roared. It was the first time he had roared at his daughter so loudly. Creak. Xiao Han's brows furrowed tightly. Blood flowed from her palms through the gaps between her clenched fingers. She pursed her teeth. Her impulsive impulse was annihilated by her father's roar. Ha ha! This is really wonderful. My brother's second essence soul is actually so strong. Murong Ziju in sorrow turned into joy. He pointed at Qin Hao, who was in a sorry state inside the restriction, and laughed crazily. An ancient Taotai essence soul. Zhou Wudao is indeed a top genius in the East Continent. Martial Emperor Xiao Yi wouldn't intervene in the competition for his daughter's selfish desires, right? Mansion Master Cui turned his head to look at Xiao Yi sinisterly. He secretly blocked in front of him, preventing him from saving Qin Hao. Martial Emperor Xiao is the dignified emperor of the empire. He's famous for being straightforward and upright in the northern border. Of course, he won't save Qin Hao. If he doesn't, he can't guarantee that his reputation will be ruined. Tian Daluo jeered. Then, if he doesn't save Qin Hao, that little bastard Qin Hao will definitely die this time. If he doesn't die, I'll also eat *T. Another Emperor Realm Elder from the Zhanyuan mansion laughed. Remember your words. If Qin Hao doesn't die and you don't eat *T, I'll feed you myself. Xiao Yi stared at the elder with a tense face. The might of Emperor Yuan bombarded him. The elder staggered and almost knelt down. Outside the arena, Qin Hao was indeed in an extremely dangerous situation. With 100,000 Imperial guards with profound cultivation bases working together, they set up a restriction to isolate the power of Tao Ye's gluttony. The spectators were safe. However, Qin Hao's feet didn't touch the ground. Like a falling leaf, he flew backward into Tao Ye's mouth. Flame Dragon Revolving Sky Slash. Suddenly, Qin Hao twisted his body and threw out the Dragon Soul Red Lotus Flame. Since he could not avoid it, he might as well face it head-on. Roar! The Dragon Soul danced in the air, and the soaring flames turned into a fire dragon that dashed toward Tao Tai's giant mouth. In the end, after the invincible move exploded, there was no reaction at all. It was like a stone sinking into the sea, not even enough to fill the gaps between the Tao Ye's teeth. Crepe Myrtle Heavenly Rainbow Sword. Second move. Heavenly Rainbow Chaser. Qin Hao gritted his teeth and took out the great void sword again. He aimed at Tao Tai's black mouth and slashed with all his might. The emerald sword radiance burst out with a bright sword aura. It was shaped like a flying dragon chasing after the sun. It dragged out a shadow that was 5 meters long and blasted into Tao Tai's mouth. But it was still useless. When the sword light entered the Tao Ye's huge mouth, it was like a bottomless pit, and there was no response. Oh, you scared me. It's a very good sword move. The power of this sword move is much stronger than your Whirlpool Sky Slash. Are you keeping it as a trump card? Ha. Zhou Wudao laughed sarcastically. Even if the sun-chasing sky sword art was stronger than the Flame Dragon Slash, it was a pity that no matter how strong the trump card was, it was useless against the greedy Tao Tai beast soul. After all, my Tao Tai's soul can swallow even the heavens. Why can't it swallow you? You should prepare to become a corpse without any bones left. Zhou Wudao tried his best to raise both of his hands, trying his best to maintain the time when the soul appeared. Because of the consumption, his legs could not help but tremble. The ancient Tao Tai beast soul was too strong. It consumed too much of his mental power. He had to see Qin Hao being sucked into the beast's mouth before he could feel at ease. As Qin Hao got closer to Tao Tai, he could not control his body anymore. The dragon scales on the surface of his body seemed to be forcefully pulled off by an external force. They flew into Tao Ye's mouth piece by piece. Those with excellent eyesight could even see Qin Hao's blood squeezing out of his pores through the barrier and being swallowed by Tao Tai. Under such strong pressure, Qin Hao's dragon form was quickly retreating. Once he reverted to his normal form, he would be dead for sure. His normal form could not withstand Zhou Wudao's attack. Great Void Sword, help me. Qin Hao communicated with the spirit of the tool and operated the Immortal Will secret art. The Great Void Sword suddenly emitted a strong light and desperately dragged Qin Hao's body to the ground from the sky. The sword stabbed into the soil, and the hilt was buried in the ground. Qin Hao stretched out his leg, and the sole of his foot blocked the hilt of the sword. Only then did he manage to regain control of his body. Even so, it did not stop Qin Hao from sliding toward Tao Tai. At this moment, the Great Void Sword's edge was tearing the earth, and it was slowly approaching Tao Tai, because the earth could not withstand the suction force. Kaka, I told you. I told you to be like me. Kneel down like a dog and submit to me. Then you can keep your life. But you, Qin Hao, don't listen to me. You want to go against Lord Zhou Wudao. Go to hell. Xinyuan Wuji stared at the battle, and his hands hugged the waist of an Imperial Army commander tightly. He looked scared, as if the barrier would break at any time. Where did this wild donkey come from? Get lost. This half-step origin Emperor commander also exerted strength from his waist. A heavy wave of Yuan Qi blasted on the other party, and Xinyuan Wuji was sent flying while vomiting blood. In the end, this half-step origin Emperor commander looked at Qin Hao, who was struggling in the barrier, with a helpless expression. Come on, young Master Qin. Don't give up. I believe you have a way to defeat Zhou Wudao. Although he said that, the half-step origin Emperor commander clearly felt that he and his brothers could not hold on any longer. Perhaps in half an incense's time, the barrier that he and the 100,000 Imperial Army were maintaining together would become Tao Tai's food and would be forcibly broken by the other party. Chapter 1069. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, The Humiliating Escape. Tao Tai is one of the 9 sons of the ancient Dragon King. His bloodline is even more noble than my ordinary dragon soul. I can't intimidate him at all. Damn it. Qin Hao gritted his teeth and resisted desperately. The distance between the two was getting closer and closer. It was less than 50 meters. One could even clearly feel the chilling intent of eternal damnation emanating from the Tao Ye's abyss-like mouth. Qin Hao's dragon soul could not intimidate Tao Tai, and his spirit grade was on par with Zhou Wudao's. It was difficult to injure him when the other party was on high alert. The chances of that were extremely slim. He was really in a desperate situation. On the Imperial Tower, Xiao Yi sighed deeply. He could see that Qin Hao had reached the limit of his limit. A miracle could not happen. He gave Duan Zhanfei a look. The two of them were ready to break through the interference of the people of the Zhanyuan mansion and rescue Qin Hao. He was not disappointed in Qin Hao. It could only be said that the heavens did not follow one's wishes. Qin Hao and Xiao Han were not fated to be together. But at this moment, a fiery red beam of light shot into the sky from the inner courtyard of the Imperial Palace. It was extremely dazzling. It appeared very suddenly. The power of its rise shook the entire Imperial city. Everyone was stunned for a moment. They could not figure out what had happened. The fiery red light made a beautiful arc in the sky and appeared in the Imperial Marshal Square in a flash. It pierced through the enchantment set up by 100,000 Imperial guards as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. The barrier was destroyed in a single blow. In an instant, the sky was filled with the figures of the Imperial guards who were sent flying and vomiting blood. The momentum was great, far greater than the chaos caused by Tao Tai. Then, the fiery red light floated in front of Qin Hao, between him and Tao Tai. It was the sunset arrow, crimson red. Perhaps sensing that its master was forced into a desperate situation, the crimson red arrow spirit returned to Qin Hao's side. Its return immediately made Tao Tai feel great pressure. It stopped sucking the endless power in its mouth and took 2 steps back restlessly. After all, the crimson arrow was not like the great void sword, which was still in the evolution stage. The crimson red was a genuine semi-god artifact. It was only half a step away from being a real artifact. What happened? As the Tao Tai stopped devouring, Zhou Wu Dao was also stunned. He looked at the scarlet arrow that had destroyed the situation and frowned. Why did it seem so familiar? It's that strange arrow, Xiao Han exclaimed. What was even more unexpected was that Qi Han's appearance could force Tao Tai to retreat. At this moment, Xiao Han was looking forward to the return of the arrow that killed the sly fox to Qin Hao's hands. She was eager to see how shocking Qin Hao's archery skills would be. Why does that arrow look so familiar? I seem to have seen him somewhere before. Inexplicably, Zhou Wudao's mind shook, and an image appeared. In the picture, there was a mighty war god in golden armor standing on the highest peak of the continent, the Sunset Mountain. He drew his bow and killed one of the 2 emperors of Japan, the Yujing Divine Emperor, who was a member of the barbarian tribe across the sea from the Qin state in the East Continent. That scene was too shocking. It was regarded as a legend in the Eastern Continent and was hard to forget. It's that arrow. Oh no, my leg is hurting again. The moment he saw the scarlet arrow, Tian Dayuo pinched his right leg with both hands. A heart-wrenching pain was drilling into his brain from his leg. That kind of pain was imprinted in his bone marrow. Boom! Zhou Wudao's mind shook. He felt that the aura of the scarlet arrow was exactly the same as the arrow shot by the sunset battle god. Impossible! How could this arrow appear here? It's too unbelievable. I can't believe it. Qin Hao, listen to me. You must not use this arrow on me. If anything happens to me, the great Zhou Imperial clan will exterminate your entire clan. Your Qin clan will not be spared. Moreover, I still have a life-saving trump card. I might not lose to you. Zhou Wudao only knew that the power of this arrow was earth-shattering. It could even kill the Emperor of Japan. It was the divine soldier of the sunset battle god. What he didn't know was that the sunset arrow originally belonged to Qin Hao. Qin Hao couldn't be bothered to listen to his nonsense. Shooting the sunset arrow consumed a lot of his energy. The last time he shot Tian Daluo, he was in a coma for a few days. The primordial qi in his body was depleted, and he slept for a long time before he recovered. However, this time, Qin Hao's cultivation had reached a higher level. His mental strength was also stronger. He believed that he wouldn't fall into a coma again. Then, Qin Hao muttered softly, "Sunset mental cultivation method. Buzz." With a wave of his hand, a guqin appeared in front of him. This old guqin was found by Lu Chou when he was searching for treasures. After Qin Hao killed Lu Chou, The guqin was kept by him. Although he didn't know what secrets were hidden in the guqin, it was obvious that it was of a very high grade. The string's elasticity was enough to withstand the sunset arrow shot by Qin Hao. Creak! Qin Hao used the guqin as a bow. The sunset arrow was placed on the 6 strings of the guqin. The 6 strings were twisted together between his thumb and forefinger. The body of the guqin looked old, but it was very elastic. It was pulled into the shape of a full moon. The tip of the arrow was aimed in Zhou Wudao's direction, and a dazzling halo burst out. Ah! Zhou Wudao screamed in fright. A cloud of black smoke came out. He used all his strength to tear the space and teleported hundreds of miles away. However, the Tao Chia's primordial spirit was still in the arena. With the last trace of intelligence, the Tao Dai resisted like a king and tried to devour Qin Hao again. Go! Qin Hao loosened his fingers. Buzz! The guqin strings burst out with a buzzing sound that made one's scalp numb. A ray of light left the guqin and pierced through the Tao Chia's mouth. The Tao Chia's primordial spirit suddenly collapsed and dissipated. However, the beam of light did not stop there. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared into the clouds. Following that, everyone saw the scene of fireworks exploding in the distant sky. There was also a muffled sound of thunder that reverberated in the air. Of course, the sunset arrow came back with it. Qin Hao grabbed the sunset arrow and looked at the arrow tip. He sighed and shook his head. He escaped. Chapter 1070. The second strongest martial emperor appears at the same time. He must have felt Qin Hao's killing intent when he shot the arrow. Therefore, he didn't dare to return to the martial emperor plaza. If he returned, Zhou Wudao would die in Qin Hao's hands. He wasn't stupid. Manager Gong Sun announced the result. Qin Hao raised his head and looked at Gong Sun Chongqing. He was a little dissatisfied that he didn't kill the descendant of his old enemy. Wait, my big brother Zhou Wudao hasn't returned yet. Why are you in such a hurry? Could it be that you really thought that you could kill my awesome big brother Zhou Wudao with one arrow? Murong Zijuan hurriedly stopped him. It was true that Qin Hao scattered the Tao Yi's soul, but he didn't forget that Zhou Wudao said he had an absolute trump card that he hadn't used yet. How could he announce the result so preposterously? Murong Zijuan believed that Zhou Wudao would return in the next second. Mansion Master Cui also had the same thought. This, Gong Sun Chongqing looked at the distant sky and then looked at Qin Hao. He was in a difficult position. Zhou Wudao's corpse was nowhere to be seen. It was good that he was on his way back. Don't wait anymore. I'm afraid he won't have the guts to return to the arena. Just announce the result. Qin Hao waved his hand with certainty, as if it was a response. An extremely infuriated roar came from a distance away. It was a roar filled with extreme hatred. It came from tens of thousands of miles away. Qin Hao, just you wait. It's not over yet. I, Zhou Wudao, will spend the rest of my life with you. Wait until I improve a little more and completely control the Tao Yi's soul. Then I will fight you to the death. Zhou Wudao said those words with deep hatred. Murong Zijuan and Mansion Master Cui were dumbfounded. I announced that Western Liangqiang's lead disciple, Qin Hao, is the winner. Gong Sun Chongqing was overjoyed and announced the result without hesitation. Mother asterisk her. How is this possible? He was so close to taking Zhou Wudao's dog life. Zhou Wudao is truly trash, a complete and utter trash. He's not even comparable to a dog, and he's not even comparable to me. Murong Zijuan's suppressed emotions erupted once again as he clenched his fist and pounded his chest. Seeing this, Manor Head Cui clenched his fists again, his deformed face filled with endless humiliation. Zhou Wudao was actually defeated by Qin Hao. Endure it. Even if Qin Hao defeats Zhou Wudao, the number 1 and number 2 geniuses on the Emperor Martial ranking list will shine brightly. Their rankings are above Zhou Wudao's, and their cultivations are even more monstrous. Qin Hao won't live past today. Abode Master Cui desperately tried to console himself. However, at this moment, Xiao Yi's face tightened as he looked at an elder of the Zhanyuan mansion and said in a deep voice, "Brother Duan, ready." A bright light flashed in Duan Zhanfei's palm, and a pile of dung appeared out of nowhere. "Oh my, it's still warm, fresh, and delicious." Duan Zhanfei tossed the steaming feces floating in his palm. Immediately afterward, Xiao Yi did not allow the elder of the Zhanyuan mansion to resist. He restrained him, opened his mouth, and the large pile of feces gushed into the elder's mouth. Blurg, as the restraints were removed, the elder of the Zhanyuan mansion, whose cultivation was at the emperor's stage, vomited the most violently in his life. After vomiting twice, he fainted in front of millions of people, throwing the face of the Zhanyuan mansion sect into a foot-washing basin. "Xiao Yi, no matter what, my fifth elder is still a reputable Monarch realm expert. You." Manor head Shui was infuriated. Next round, Xiao Yi did not bother to look at him. "Bah, old man, you reap what you sow." "K." Spat at the fainted elder of the Zhanyuan mansion. "Ha ha ha." The civil and military officials of Daoyao laughed wildly. Creak. Mansion Master Chui clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles cracked. He stared at the fifth elder, who was covered in feces and almost vomiting out his intestines, and roared at the disciples of the Zhanyuan mansion. "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and take the fifth elder away and wash him. Remember, wash him 10,000 times." Yes, the disciples were so scared that they picked up the fifth elder and ran away. They looked as funny as they could. "Manager Gong's son, hurry up and invite the strongest and second strongest of the Imperial Martial Kingdom out. I can't wait to see how Qin Hao dies." Tian Daluo hurriedly said in order to divert the attention of the sect. His words were indeed effective. Millions of people's eyes were all focused on Gong's son Changxing. The strongest and second strongest of the Imperial Martial Kingdom were so mysterious that even Morong Zijuan and Xinyuan Wuji, who were also in the top 10, were not qualified to know their identities. "Big brother, you have to hold on. We're only half a step away." Xiaoguo was extremely nervous. "Duan Ziju, do you know who those two are?" Yi Shuihan looked at Duan Ziju. Even the most mysterious secret agent of the Luo Shui mansion could not find out who those two were. It was still a mystery to this day. Duan Ziju shook his head. "I'm not afraid of you laughing at me. As the crown prince of the warlord, I'm not qualified to know this huge secret. I'm afraid only the martial emperor himself and my father know about it. Now, I can only pray that their cultivation and trump cards are not too much higher than Zhou Wudao's." Duan Ziju looked at Qin Hao worriedly. Qin Hao stood alone on the shattered and almost gravel-like battle arena. His aura was extremely weak. Duan Ziju was worried that he would not be able to hold on. "All right, as you wish, I'll invite the strongest person on the Imperial Martial Kingdom's ranking list." Gongsun Changxing smiled mysteriously, but he paused. Qin Hao could not help but feel nervous. He looked at the exit of the tunnel where the contestants had appeared. The exit of the tunnel was still locked. No one had stepped out. At this moment, Gongsun Changxing waved the horsetail whisk in his hand and laughed loudly. He pointed at Qin Hao, who was standing alone on the battle arena, and shouted, "He's so far away, but he's right in front of you. Isn't the second strongest right under your noses?" "What? My big brother is the terrifying second strongest of the Imperial Martial Kingdom?" Xiaoguo was stunned. He widened his eyes in disbelief. This, Duan Ziju and Yi Shuihan looked at each other, speechless. Following this, a huge light screen covered the sky above the square. On the list of the Imperial Martial Kingdom's top 10, the two eye-catching words Qin Hao suddenly flashed in the empty space above Zhou Wudao's. Puff. Following this, it would definitely be time for the two of them to display their affection for one another. Just as the crowd was filled with questions and apprehension, Xiaohan removed her veil with a smile on her face, revealing her breathtakingly beautiful face. She then handed the white velvet cloak over her shoulders to K.Er. Xiaohan, who was dressed in martial artist attire, flew down valiantly and stood in front of Qin Hao, stunning Qin Hao. Big brother Qin Hao, you must be surprised that I'm the champion of the Imperial Martial Competition, right? However, I won't go easy on you. Xiao Han said playfully. I'm indeed very surprised, but I'm also relieved. At the very least, you won't kill me like the others. Qin Hao laughed out loud. His heart, which had been suspended in the air, calmed down, and he no longer felt any sense of heaviness or oppression. Princess, young Master Qin, you can start now. Let me see who is more skilled between the two of you. Gongsun Chongqing shouted excitedly. Only now did the 5-year agreement truly come to an end. Big brother Qin Hao, do you need to take a break? Xiao Han could sense that Qin Hao was very tired after a series of fierce battles. No need. I don't need to rest to deal with a little girl like you. Qin Hao smiled contentedly. He did not even need to activate his dragon form. He waved his great void sword and created a few beautiful emerald sword shadows. Don't look down on me. Be careful. You won't be able to become my father's son-in-law. Xiao Han would have severely injured anyone who looked down on her. However, she was not angry at Qin Hao. She took out her beloved blue water sword and activated her primordial qi. She was about to attack. Wait a minute. I have doubts about your strength as the champion of the Imperial Martial Competition. At this time, a shout reverberated. Looking toward the source of the voice, they found that it was Mansion Master Chui of the Moon-Seizing Mansion. Not only him, but Tian Dayuo and Murong Zijuan also doubted Xiao Han's ability. Murong Zijuan, in particular, thought that he knew Xiao Han well. Over the past 5 years, Murong Zijuan had stayed away from the Yan Kingdom and enrolled in the Royal Academy of Daliao to study. He saw Xiao Han every day. Murong Zijuan and Qi Yuan were well aware of her progress. In the beginning, Xiao Han's cultivation level did not even make Murong Zijuan want to attack her. Although she had made great progress in the past few years, Murong Zijuan firmly believed that Xiao Han's combat strength was not above his and was not qualified to be the champion of the Imperial Martial Competition Board. Roar! As soon as Mansion Master Chui spoke, he completely enraged the 100,000 Imperial Guards of Daliao. As the Martial Emperor's niece, Princess Jingyue was the most powerful genius that could not be slandered. At this time, Xiao Yi waved his hand and stopped the Imperial Guards. Chapter 1072. Translator, Nioibo Studio Editor. Nioibo, Studio Best, Drama Queen, Waterwind Dodge. At the critical moment, Qin Hao used a fleet-foot stride to move away. A piece of cloth flew out from his sleeve and landed on the ground, creating a thumb-sized hole. You actually managed to reach the 4th step of the Waterwind Step without anyone's guidance. Girl, Big Brother Qin Hao has broadened his horizons. Looking at the piece of cloth falling to the ground, Xiao Han's sword attack combined with the Waterwind Step was very ingenious. To put it bluntly, if it wasn't for Qin Hao's familiarity with the combination of the Waterwind Step and the fleeting sword, someone else might have already died. At this moment, he was looking at Xiao Han with astonishment. Back in the Qin family in Akita town, Qin Hao had only imparted the cultivation method of the Waterwind Step to Xiao Han, but he had never shown it to Xiao Han. Now, Xiao Han had learned it without a teacher. So what? You've already used the 5th step of the Waterwind Step, haven't you? Xiao Han pouted with a trace of jealousy, but she still had a sweet expression on her face. Ha ha ha. Girl, you're asking for a beating. Golden Finger. Qin Hao put his sword behind his back and sent out a finger beam. Fleeting Sword. Xiao Han waved her wrist and shook her sword, using the fleeting sword chi to dissolve the finger beam. Then, the two used the Waterwind Step and chased each other in front of millions of people. Their figures were intimately entwined with each other. Along the way, the fleeting sword chi flashed back and forth. They were having a great time fighting. Not to mention other things, if one were to judge the two based on their movement and sword techniques, they were indeed peerless, leaving the other contestants in the dust. Contestants ranked below 20 would find it hard to resist the power of one sword attack from the two. Contestants ranked below 20 would be considered lucky if they could withstand two sword attacks. Even those as strong as Duan Ziju and Yi Shuihan might not be able to keep up with the rhythm of the battle between Qin Hao and Xiao Han. However, such an intense and pleasing scene caused Murong Zijuan's eyes to turn red with jealousy when he saw it. A volcano erupted in his heart, and he couldn't help but want to roar crazily. How is this a fight? It was clearly you kissing and I love, flirting with each other. This was a public display of affection. Just when Murong Zijuan could no longer endure it, the battle between Qin Hao and Xiao Han reached its climax. Qin Hao unleashed a 100-meter-long sword aura mixed with the red lotus tyrannical fire. Rainbow Dragon breaks the sun. Roar! The fire dragon appeared from within the flames and roared as it charged toward Xiao Han, leaving a trail of dust in its wake. It was the second style of crepe myrtle heavenly rainbow that was above graceful single sword. Although she was a little bitter, she had always kept a mute in her heart. However, she would just treat the mute as another person in her dream. I'm so envious of Daliao's princess, Jingwei. Xing pursed her lips. She didn't know why, but she really wanted to cry. She really wanted to be the one hugging Qin Hao in front of everyone. She really wanted Qin Hao to gently put on a beautiful white phoenix dress for her again, turning her from a beggar into a beautiful young lady. However, she also wanted Qin Hao to have the most perfect happiness. Ha ha, Sister Xiao Han, boss, congratulations. It's not easy for you guys. Xiaoguo was the most relaxed one among them, and he was also the first one who couldn't help but run over. Immediately after, Yi Wuhan, Yi Shuihan, Xiao Jiao, and Qin Yun looked at each other and smiled, then walked over at the same time. Wait, pull me along. Although I don't feel good, I can't miss the chance to give my blessings to Jingwei. If I miss the chance to give my blessings, it will be my greatest regret. Duan Ziju desperately turned his wheelchair, ignoring the friction between the wheels and the flesh on his palms. He crazily followed the group. Everyone was like a wedding procession, getting closer and closer to Qin Hao and Xiao Han. Seeing this warm, sweet, and happy scene, Murong Zijuan was about to go crazy. He roared in a hoarse voice, and his eyes turned red. He pushed away the general holding him and roared, "Enough! This prince can't take it anymore. You shameless dog couple, don't agree?" This voice was abrupt and instantly broke the atmosphere. Do you think it's that easy to become Xiao Yi's son-in-law and Daliao's son-in-law? Xiao Yi smiled as well. Could it be that his daughter was not even comparable to an ordinary treasure and was not worth fighting over? He, Xiao Yi, was an emperor-level expert, and Xiao Han was now a princess. She would be the future empress of an empire. According to you, Mansion Master Chui, should Emperor Zhao's daughter, be given to any participant? At this point, Xiao Yin roared with a heart full of anger. His shout angered all the Daliao soldiers. Participating in the competition was inherently dangerous. Qin Hao had fought bloody battles step by step, putting his life in danger several times. Whether it was facing the heaven-ascending jade bracelet thrown out by Murong Zijuan or defeating Zhou Wudao with difficulty, he didn't rely on luck or backdoor methods. He relied on his strength to fight his way to Xiao Han and obtain the title of champion. Moreover, even the losers would receive the prizes prepared by the Imperial Martial Competition. Every prize prepared by Daliao had brought great benefits to the contestants in this lifetime. Mansion Master Chui actually said that the competition had killed all the geniuses of the sect. He might as well say that he was jealous of Qin Hao and deliberately splashed dirty water on the prince consort and the princess. He could not eat the grapes and said that the grapes were sour. That's enough, father. Don't waste your breath on them. Let me ask you, do you think that Xiao Han admitted defeat on purpose? And that she is not qualified to be the champion of the Emperor Martial Competition? Xiao Han scolded. That's right. That's what I mean. In my opinion, you are not qualified to be the champion of the Emperor Martial Competition at all. You lost to Qin Hao on purpose. Xinyuan Wuji also stood out. He also felt that if Zhou Wudao had not suddenly blocked his way, the champion of the emperor martial competition would have been him. He was the best candidate to be Dao Yao's son-in-law, instead of Qin Hao, who won the competition in a muddle-headed way. You got guts. I don't know if your strength is as great as your words. Take my sword first before you say your arrogant words. Xiao Han was just worried that he could not show his strength. However, Xinyuan Wuji stood out. Besides Qin Hao, he was indeed the most powerful one among all the participants of the emperor martial competition. Without any hesitation, Xiao Han slashed his sword at Xinyuan Wuji. The sacred purple light under the sword soared and turned into a huge purple phoenix, attacking Xinyuan Wuji. It was the ultimate purple phoenix dance. You're overestimating yourself. Xinyuan Wuji sneered disdainfully. He changed his palms in front of his chest and pushed them forward abruptly. Along with his overwhelming pneuma, a shocking dragon roar sounded. Then, everyone saw an earthy dragon whose body was made of mud flying under Xinyuan Wuji's palms and facing Xiao Han's purple phoenix. Let me expose your inferior cultivation. Bullsh *T. I'm the champion of the emperor martial competition. Xinyuan Wuji sneered inwardly. After defeating Xiao Han, Qin Hao's position should be occupied by him. Xiao Han, watch out. Many martial artists lowered their heads in shame. They shouldn't have listened to Manor-head Chui and Tian Daoyuo's instigation. Xinyuan Wuji was almost chopped to death without using his original spirit. Who dares doubt the princess's strength? I, Qin Yun, who ranks 31st in Emperor's strength, would like to challenge you. Qin Yun stood out timely. I, Xiaogua, would like to challenge you. I, Yi Shuihan, would like to challenge you. The Death God's attendant, Hao Zhixing, would like to challenge you. Voila! Qin Hao's group of relatives and friends all took a step forward, including Xing, and Chun Wanqin. They were all powerful people ranked at the top of the Emperor Martial ranking. Basically, they occupied the top 10 spots on the Emperor Martial ranking. This aura made everyone take a step back. No one has any objections to my daughter's performance, right? Xiao Yi nodded in satisfaction. Not only was he satisfied with Xiao Han's prestige, he was also very satisfied with Qin Hao's friends. Qin Hao's friends were his daughter's friends. A martial emperor's eyes were always very sharp. Xiao Yi could see that Xiaogua and the others would all be arrogant geniuses that could stir up the continent in the future. Damn! Mansion Master Chui and Tian Daoyuo clenched their fists and gnashed their teeth in hatred. They had not expected Princess Dao Yao's true cultivation to be so strong that she had almost killed Xinyuan Wuji with one strike. It seemed like their plan to ruin the wedding would not work. In that case, the possibility of killing Qin Hao had become zero. I'm really unwilling to accept this. God, open your eyes and see my sincerity. As long as Qin Hao can die, I'm willing to bet my life. Tian Daoyuo howled sorrowfully. His sorrow and sincerity had finally moved the heavens. In the next second, the sky above the Emperor Martial Square shook violently. A large number of cracks appeared on the walls of the Emperor Martial Pavilion. It looked like it was about to collapse. Pa. The sound of space shattering could be heard. Xiao Yi and Duan Zhanfei's faces were extremely solemn. They were extremely vigilant, and their platinum Emperor Realm essence, Qi, surged involuntarily. This was because two extremely powerful auras were coming out from the cracks in space. These two auras were not as powerful as the Star Soul Martial Emperor, who had snatched Song Xiang away. However, it was enough to make Xiao Yi and Duan Zhanfei feel a sense of crisis. There was no doubt that other Emperor Realm powerhouses were about to arrive at the Emperor Martial Square. Moreover, they were two supreme, the arch powerhouses the moment they arrived. The princess's marriage is a major event. How can it be so sloppy and trifling? Others may not have any objections, but I have a great objection. as an extremely dignified and oppressive voice rang out. A middle-aged man in violet gold dragon robes strode out from the shattered space.